The Brewtally Speaking podcast is proudly sponsored by Starving Artist Brewing. Starving Artist Brewing may be a small speck on Michigan's beer map, but they say big things come in small packages. A brewery who really puts their money where their mouth is, supporting underground artists far and wide. Making delicious beers with the simple belief that you should judge beer, not people. Brewtally Speaking podcast is proudly sponsored by Rockabilia.com. For over 30 years, Rockabilia has been the go-to destination for all things band merch. With over 500,000 items in their online store and collaborations with today's hottest bands, you're sure to find something you love. Use our code BREW10 at checkout and take 10% off your total order. So go pick up your favorite new piece of merch now over at Rockabilia.com. And now, on to the show.
Say you have to have a lot of passion for what you're doing. This rings true because it's so hard that if you don't, any rational person would give up. It's really hard, and you have to do it over a sustained period of time. So if you don't love it, and if you're not having fun doing it, you're gonna give up.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Brewtally Speaking podcast. I am your host, John. This episode's guest is the returning Porter McKnight from Atreyu. And honestly, you know, you're going to hear this if you're listening to this on air date. It's Christmas Eve. So Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to those in whatever you celebrate, however you celebrate it. And if you're choosing to listen to this episode, thanks a lot for continuing to do such. It has been a crazy year, and the last few weeks, month or so has just been wild with the guests and the feedback, and honestly, that Better Lovers episode is still crushing. It is now probably in my top 5 most downloaded episodes. Fucking crazy. And I am working right now on actually getting Jordan back on the podcast in the next week or so. So hopefully that'll be a thing that we end up doing and are able to have him come back on and have a great conversation. There's a lot of stuff I want to talk to him about, but very excited to have Porter back on the show, and it feels kind of befitting. He won't be the last episode of the year, but he will be the second to last, and it feels fitting given the fact that Porter was kind of one of the first guests to come on the show, and someone, I don't want to necessarily put it like this, but of note, that actually kind of gave me the time to come on the show and just bullshit with me. And honestly, it's crazy to think back 7 years later about the friendship that has formed and just the things and places I've gone because of our friendship, and just the memories and conversations that him and I have had over the years. And it's one of those where it's something where I would say it's a quality over quantity type friendship, and was really interesting because leading up this, and you'll kind of hear it, but I talk. No shock. I talk a lot in the beginning for probably the first 10-15 minutes of this chat. But for some context, when Porter and I were trying to set up time to do this, because we had honestly been trying to do this months before, and we wanted to be able to kind of talk about the process of the 3 EPs becoming the full length, some of the stuff that Porter was kind of talking to myself and my wife at the time about, the spark of creativity and some other inspirations that the band now had kind of doing their own thing. And it's one of those things where when we were talking about doing this, he had a window of time open now that he lives back overseas with his wife. And I was like, well, Bridget's out of town, so I have all the time to do something. Let me know if there's a day that works for you, and I'll kind of plan around it. And then it became this thing where he picked a date, and I was like, yeah, I mean, I could make that morning work, but I had an acid trip planned, so, you know, it's whatever. I can do that another time or after we're done. And he just literally was like, no, no, no. Let's do it the next morning if you're interested. I would love to hear how your acid trip goes. And I was like, oh, okay, cool, tight. And there were a couple of times that I had texted him just to make sure everything was good to go time-wise so I could set alarms and all that stuff for myself. So the beginning of this starts, and it's me talking, and that's why. The thing was Porter wanted to hear me talk about my acid trip. It wasn't like I was just like, so here's 15 minutes of me talking about an acid trip out of nowhere. But I think that's the other thing, too, that I really enjoy about Porter and I's relationship as it has kind of blossomed over the years is it's one of exploration of ourselves, of each other, of trying to be supportive of one another in the growth of us as people. And I can definitely say Porter and his wife, honestly, have really, over the last handful of years, really helped me explore more of myself and questions and thoughts I have kind of beyond myself. It's kind of the best way I can put it. I know that sounds very weird, but I think as I get older, I'm kind of on more of a journey of self and kind of different existences maybe that may exist in this realm or others. And so we're gonna kind of delve into a lot of that throughout this conversation. So without further ado, let's get into my conversation with Porter, and I'll talk to you on the other side of it. Person knows so that way they're not like caught off guard, like, oh, are we recording now?
Oh, we've already started?
We started? Yeah, you can't do that. What the fuck? No, so fun story. So obviously, for those that are listening to this, Porter and I had been going back and forth about trying to do this for so long. And then it was, well, let's wait for things to kind of be announced and to be out there, which was subsequently the full length coming out of the EPs. From there, it was then kind of working on a time between tours, you going back home now, overseas back in Germany or whatever, time difference. And then I was like, yeah, I can do this day, like Bridget's out of town. And then you were like, how about Saturday? I was like, I was planning on doing an acid trip, so I can do that another day, though. And then you're like, let's do it the next day so we can discuss that.
And then you can tell us all about it.
Absolutely. So my good friend came up to hang out with me this weekend, and so that's what we did. So yesterday, before we went and got breakfast, lunch, whatever, we each took a half tab of acid. So I had a nice full stomach of food, had a couple drinks to start the day. That was at about probably like 12:31 p.m.
Okay.
And then we went.
Is that your first time doing it?
In this dosage, yes.
Okay.
I was gonna go just a full tab straight out the gate, and he's like, "Do you know what that's gonna do?" And I was like, "Not entirely. I'll figure it out." So fast forward, we go to a bar I used to work at, like where I still go all the time, and we proceeded to sit there and just keep drinking. Well, I should say he kept drinking. I kind of just maintained on my one because then everything kind of started hitting. And for me, it kind of feels like sort of like mushrooms, where it's like you don't really have the want to drink. You're just kind of there, and you're kind of, everyone's buzzing around. It's loud. It's a cacophony of noises. And so in my brain, it's like you start picking up different conversations and kind of dropping into them and just kind of realizing like people's energies and shit like that. And so much to the point, and this is why I wanted to tell you this. So at one point I see, also for context, the area that we were in, they did a 0.1K for Duchenne's. It's I think a form of muscular dystrophy, and they support a cause. People go to the different bars, all this kind of stuff. Bridget's company usually is like the main event sponsor of it, and I forgot all about it. So it was just packed full of not normal people that go to like the businesses that are around our area. So at one point, one of my friends is cutting limes, and this kid grabs one out of the bucket, and his girlfriend. I can't really see I can't really hear them because they're too far away, but I just can tell body language wise, she is fucking pissed. He has this lime. And my bartender friend was just like, yeah, you can have it. It's fine. And then she was like, I could see her lips saying, you're fucking embarrassing me. Please put it back or I'm fucking leaving. So I see it and I reach over and I grab the lime from the guy and I go, give it to me. I was like, you're not like, it's not a problem. I go, it's not worth a nothing fight over a fucking lime. I go, it's an early day. It's nice out. Enjoy your time. Don't ruin your whole day because of a nothing fight over a fucking lime. And I was like, I'll hold on to your conflict lime.
Lime.
Over the next 11 hours, I took this with me to other places, and I would just do this all night, just playing with this thing. And then people would ask me about it, and I would be very, very upfront that I was in the middle of an acid trip and explain the story. And then they would be like, well, that's not real. And I was like, okay. Believe whatever you want to believe.
It might be real, it might be not. I did just say I'm on an acid trip.
Yeah. And then there was a point during the middle part of the day, probably like 5, 6 o'clock, where it was like, do you want to leave? Like to my friend, like, do you want to leave or would you like to go somewhere else? Or we can go home, get some firewood, do a full fucking tab and just really go. Like we're at a point in the day where it's like we could still really get after it if we wanted to, or just kind of enjoy this nice middle ground feeling where everything's like fine. You're able to like be chill with a bunch of people and just experience the good vibes. And he was like, it's up to you, man. I was like, I think I would rather not push it and just enjoy a good time. And I realized even in that moment where part of my brain was like, let's fucking take this to the next level. Let's just see how fucking wild we can take this. Because there was no...
Yeah, I thought you were about to say you like dance with fire spirits later or something. And it was about to get really weird.
Well, I kind of ended up doing that later. So over the course of the whole night, we ended up closing the bar. We went to a different bar and closed the bar. A friend of mine took us home and it wasn't until like everything was like quiet and I was alone. And then I tried going to bed and I just couldn't sleep. Like all of a sudden, like then I started seeing shit. Like very intense, like light flashes of light out of nowhere. I kept kind of seeing like trails, like where I thought I saw someone walking, like apparitions kind of in my room.
Open eyes or closed eyes?
Me or the apparitions?
Yeah. You.
Both. My eyes, I believe, were closed. They felt closed. I had my head in a pillow. I also remember the visuals being so strong that, like, at one point when I was trying to sleep, that it almost seemed like, you know, that effect on your iPhone now where if you click like a photo, it'll take like a photo of you, and so you can then put it into like other things. I had like an image of somebody, I don't know who, and then it just did that, like where the whole background just went away, but it was just this person, like how the iPhone trick does that thing. And I just kept thinking to myself, and like I had a lot of weight feeling on my chest, but I also had just gotten tattooed on this side. So I was like, am I just becoming hyper aware of like the pain or what my body's doing to heal? And then just thinking about my body as a whole, because I was like, I feel like I'm on the verge of having a panic attack because I really just want to go to sleep because like it's late. I have shit to do in the morning and I'm ready to be done. And then I was like, maybe taking a total of like a tab and a half of acid over the course of 12 hours was not a great idea. But I was at least thankful that I didn't do the full tab, just full send it earlier in the evening, because I feel like at that point.
Wait, so you took a tab and a half over the course of the day? Oh, so you just kept taking more throughout the day?
Kept taking halves, yeah.
Ah, cool. All right.
Yeah, because I feel like it's almost like mushrooms in that regard, where it's like, let's just keep like the nice body buzz and everything going and just keep going.
It sounds like a wild journey.
It was. I picked up I realized when I take psychedelics that I realized I become very fascinated with vibes and people's vibes. Like I start noticing it a lot more. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's very weird. thing.
You kind of slow down and are more attuned to that side of this existence, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. I think
the normal layers of reality don't matter as much.
Well, and it was kind of interesting too, because in light of like today, when we're done with this, I'll drop my episode with Telly from The Word Alive, and we were talking about their new album called Hard Reset, and I've been thinking about that idea that sometimes we need to hard reset things to further reacclimate ourselves to different environments maybe we find ourselves in, or I don't know. And it was funny because last night I was thinking about that, and then thinking about something you and I had talked about, not on this, about leading into the new record. And I feel like it's interesting because you had said something about how the series of EPs and everything that I guess your mission statement of sorts for this record was to kind of, the wonderment of, can we do this without, like, it was weird because you were talking about like, can we still kind of do this without Alex, and like the things that inspired all of you to do, like, the spark of flame, like all the things had something to do with like, can we do this and moving forward with yourselves. And I kind of thought of that as like a hard reset, even though you had already proven that you could with other material that you put out since. But it was interesting to kind of hear that you're still cognizant of those things that inspire you to overcome, even though I feel like you already have.
Yeah, I mean, this whole chapter for us with these 3 EPs leading in to an album, which I'm not even certain that we're leading into an album as public knowledge yet, but here it is. I think Brandon may have talked about it before. We all had that. We knew we would be fine. We knew we could do it, but it was still like we had 20 plus years as this different 5, and we removed a member, and now we have another new person. How does that affect things? He brought a lot to the table, of course. He was very talented. Everyone knows that. He's for the record, nothing but respect. Wish him all the best. So we were like, can we do it? He wrote a lot of lyrics. Can we still write the lyrics? In previous bands that I'd been in and throughout the years in Atreyu, like I wrote a lot of lyrics, but that was his main goal, or his main role, I should say. And so we all had that stepping into these writing sessions, stepping into recording, like, do we have it? Can we do it? What are we without it? Are we still good? Was he this thing that was so important? Who knows? It's just that as an artist, you have these unknowns that you face often, and these hurdles and these things that can be catalysts, but can also break you. The unknown is one of the most exciting and daunting things in existence. And so it was just the hope of a spark idea is like, do we still have it? Can we find that spark? Like, my love of the term spark, and I use this quite often, and that's how I try to exist and have tried to exist in this realm, this universe, this existence, this reality, whatever. Like, I've followed that spark. I've followed a spark my whole life. That's how I've known which path to go down. That's how I knew which roads to leave. It's the most important thing that one can find. It's your own internal GPS. So yeah, the hope of a spark was just that. It's kind of that idea of like, can we do it? And then the second EP, The Moment You Find Your Flame, is just that, like, oh fuck, okay, it's not just a spark, it's a flame. Like, fuck yeah, let's go. And you start to feel a little more confident, and you start to like realize things about yourself after, like you're saying, which is a very poignant thing. And that's interesting about the Word Alive's previous album called Hard Reset. I like that. Once you have one of those things, and once you completely eradicate anything that came before, and like, who am I now? Who are we now? Yeah. You start to see things that maybe did exist in the past but lay dormant for a long time. You start to find out new things. And there were so many moments that I shocked myself, lyrically, with my voice, with whatever it may be, with bringing ideas to the table. I think all of us throughout the process shocked ourselves, and how we trusted not just ourselves but each other, and how we had, the 5 of us now have this openness and this ability to just talk about anything and everything, and be and throw out any ideas that we want and throw out anything and never feel dumb for it, never feel ridiculed. Just it's a safe place. And we've created that for each other, you know. I think we've become more open and honest than we've ever been in our entire career. And, you know, like I am one, for instance, that's struggled my entire life with anxiety, what's that fucking word? Imposter syndrome, lack of confidence, fear, all that stuff. I conquer it every day. You know, I meditated before this because I had nerves to be in front of a camera talking to a human being, even though I know you really well. It's still like, it's daunting, you know? And so I meditated before this. I took a shower, I relaxed, and I tried to be the best version of myself, you know? But going back to, so I have had these things for a long time, and I started being vocal about them about 8 years ago. And during this process, during this writing of this album, like we wrote a song called Drowning, and it was during in the unveiling and the digging up of that song, like Brandon told me about issues that he's had over his life where he just had periods of time that just disappeared, and his own fears and insecurities and his version of what that means. And she's never talked about that ever. Like in most people's head, Brandon's just this social butterfly that everything is easy for him, but it's not, you know? And same with Dan, same with Travis, same with all of us. Like we really opened up, and it connected to ourselves and each other more than we ever have, which is, I think, apparent in the music.
I think they're I'm going to say this, and it's sort of, I think when I say it, you will understand it, but coming from the person potentially who's going to listen to this, having more of the relationship I have with all of you guys over the years of getting to know you all a little bit more personally, I feel that, and this is nothing against, you know, who's not in the band anymore, but there just seems to be, it seems like when you guys came back, you know, long live, it seemed like there sort of was, it was like a second chapter of sorts of the band. Like it seemed like the band that was, and I hate to use this term because it sounds condescending, but it was more of like children. You like, and now it's like when you came back, it's like people have families, you're married, you have kids, it's a more focused, and there's a better understanding of why. Your why has been rediscovered. And I think the why,
Sure.
while it is the same, which is we want to create, I think the understanding of, but I want to create within this means and this manner because it's authentically who I am versus trying to chase something we think people want. And I think that comes with age and understanding of who you are, that instead of trying to do something in the rat race of like, well, I gotta get on a top hit and the label wants this and da 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 da, and it's like, if you're chasing something that's inauthentic, that's not you, the results are going to be not like fruitless, kind of, because it's not worth it. It's hollow and it's fake. And I feel like it seems like there has been a more concerted effort to say something in what you're doing, be it you know, the songs that you're doing. Like I just feel like there's more intention behind everything seems to be more thought out, and that's a very adult way of moving
Do you
through
mean
life and
post Long
progressing.
Live or on this album?
Yes, from Long Live moving forward, basically, I'm saying this, and I think that it has been more focused moving forward. And it seems like, you know, to me, the last time you guys were here in town, sitting with Dan and Brandon on your bus and having like a real conversation about like marriage and like things like that, and like where we are in our lives, and just having like a real, nothing to do with any of this shit conversation. And to me, it was more telling, because when I have those interactions with all of you now, I feel like you all are more comfortable in yourselves, insecurities, doubts, fears, also in your abilities, in yourself. But really, you also, in talking to you all individually, can tell that there is such a huge respect for all of you individually, what you all bring to the table. And I feel like it comes across so much more on everything you're putting out, because I think it, like I said, it has more purpose and intention behind it.
Yeah. Going back to, you know, when we took a break after Congregation, that was necessary for a lot of reasons, but the main reason was that, you know, I will focus on the four of them, not myself, for this. Like, they had never, as adults, known anything but Atreyu. Some of them were in the band since they were 16 years old. They had been children and started touring, and they only knew that life. And it's really hard to be who you are when you're always touring, because when you're on the road, you're, at least for myself, like, you are perpetually surrounded by other humans and other opinions, and you're never in a comfortable space. The only space you can find that's comfortable is maybe a bunk if you're lucky enough to be on a bus. If you're in a van, there's almost nowhere to go but the dressing room. But if you're in a van, most times those venues, dressing rooms are shit. So you just have no sense of self. And so you become something that is an amalgamation of all these other people, right? So the four of them, and me included, of course, but I say the four of them because I went to college. I had, full high school graduation. I went to college for 3.5 years. I didn't graduate because of fucking music, but what are you gonna do? It's never mattered. But I am just saying because I had a moment to grow as myself outside of the band, right? A little bit. And then I joined in with them. And so our time away from the band made us realize a lot more about who we are as people, what we want out of this life, the loves, the dislikes, all that sort of stuff. And so when we did finally decide to come back together, we all had a better foundation under ourselves, And so I think you're right. That has been reflected throughout every album since, and it's only getting better, in my opinion. It's only getting clearer, and it's only, I know it's a very stereotypical and cliche thing to say, but like these songs are the best songs we've ever written. In my
Your
opinion.
heaviest and most,
I think
most adventurous.
Once you put, yeah, right. No, definitely not our heaviest. I would, if you put these songs all together and like you listen to the journey that it takes you on, it's a fun ride. And I think that that's one of the most exciting parts about our band for most of our career is that no song on an album sounds exactly the same. It still sounds like us. It still sounds like Atreyu, but like if you listen to Forevermore next to God Devil, like those are completely different songs. And I respect the bands that go out there and do their thing and they have their sound, like the AC/DCs and shit like that. They're like, oh, that's another AC/DC song. Fuck yeah. I mean, who am I to say they're massive? But I love that when you listen to our music, it's a journey and there is no two songs and that sound alike. And when we have tried to be like, let's write another Bleeding Mascara, it's a terrible song. They exist on albums. You can go listen to it. You can figure it out. We've tried to write Becoming the Bull again and try to copy our previous selves. It doesn't work. You have to be who you are in the moment. You have to be the version of yourself, and you have to do it for yourself. Like you said earlier, when we've done it for commercial reasons, when we've written songs to please others, we've written an album to please others, it didn't work. And live, we don't really play songs off of those albums. They're not bad. When you listen to it, it's good music. And those albums, that's why I'm not naming them and I'm being vague, is because people love them. People have big connections to those. But we only really see like what happened during, and we know that that's not us.
You're hitting on something that I find interesting, and whenever I think about it, there's not many instances where I think this is a thing that exists beyond like these two realms. So given what you do for an entertainment medium, it seems like it's one of the few where people will latch on to a part of you and forever you're that person, that moment of time. Like you don't ever get to progress. You're just that. And it's such a weird way to exist in someone's mind, like where you're like, you're this person based on this much information I have, based on a connection I made wherever I was in my life at that point, but you stay there. That's where you stay. The only thing I can really think of that people exist that way, and I guess it's kind of twofold. I think parents to their kids kind of do that. Like I know from my experiences as I've gotten older with my parents, that sometimes I still feel like they see me as a kid, not an almost 40-year-old person who's been living on my own for, almost 20 something years, having, been married this long, having my own life, doing things, but I still feel like it's like they see me as a child. I exist in this
Sure.
moment of time for them. The only other time I think that that really exists is when you run into people from like high school that don't really know you and all they know of you is this finite amount of time, and now all these years, decades, whatever have moved and changed. And then if you happen to see some of these people, they're like, oh my god, you changed so much. And it's like, I mean, I would hope we all kind of would to a degree, but like I'm not the person that you knew when I was 13. Like
Yeah.
that would be
No, I
very
mean,
sad if I was still that person.
you're totally right. I am not the same person that got beers with you and Bridget, what, like a month ago in Grand Rapids. Like I
No.
have progressed and learned a lot in that month since then. You know what I mean? Like I grow every single day. Sometimes we go forward, sometimes we fall back from where we want to go, you know? Sometimes we get lazy for a couple of days and then we're like, fuck, why did I do that? And then we're like, oh right, because I still need to rest too. But you grow every day and you change every day. And I think that's a very important thing. And you are totally right. Like, I mean, all of my hair moves south, you know, like it's on my face at least, you know. So it's like people think that I'm still the same person. It gets even more confusing with the whole Mark Porter thing. Um, I think we have talked about that. I'll clear it up. My name is Porter Marco McKnight. My parents called me Mark my whole life. When I was 26, I was like, Porter's a way better name than Mark. So I started introducing myself as Porter to new people. So from then on, I was like, I'm just going to use my real name. It's not like I was pulling a Madonna or making up some shit. And so like, it's interesting when people still call me Mark. I'm like, oh, you still think I'm Mark. It's interesting. And I am still Mark, but you know what I mean? Like it's an interesting when oh, I haven't spoken to you since 2004. Oh, cool. Hi.
Yeah.
Hello. You know, I'm a lot different than I was back then, you know? And I think speaking of bands, not just the members of the bands, like there are plenty of people that have listened to our band. It's like, oh, I loved your band in high school for The Curse and Death Grip, and maybe they left during Lead Sales, or they just grew up and listened to EDM or whatever, you know? Like it's always so funny to me that like, oh yeah, Atreyu, like Bleeding Mascara. I'm like, you're talking about a song that was written 20 plus years ago that we hardly even play live anymore. That is not an accurate representation, in my opinion, or anyone in my bands of like, yeah, what's the first song you should listen to when you want to hear our band? Oh yeah, go listen to Bleeding Mascara. Like we would never say that. It's a good song. It's fun. But we have grown so much since then. We are so much more than The Curse. You know what I mean? Um, and I think that like talking on nostalgia, I think nostalgia is an intriguing and a fascinating thing. And I think that especially because, you know, culture and music and art and fashion, and it works in cycles and it works in waves, right? And we are currently kind of just gone through a grunge phase that
Mhm.
is repeating from the Nirvana era. We're kind of going into a new metalish thing now, and then we're gonna be soon into what was after new metal, if you remember,
Metalcore.
metalcore. So like it's interesting to see these waves of nostalgia happen. I mean, we played the first When We Were Young festival, and it was, I mean, it was just genuinely fascinating. I learned the term elder emo that day when I saw it on a shirt. I was like, oh, interesting. But I think nostalgia is fascinating, and I think it's also extremely harmful
Mm.
to be stuck and only listen to things that make you feel nostalgic for when the days were better, times were better, music was better. Is that so? Or were you two things? Were you young and had blinders on because you were young and dumb and had no responsibilities, which maybe that's what you're chasing, but maybe you're not a better person, not as good a person as you were back then.
Right.
You know, like it's a dangerous thing to get caught up in that, I think. I read a quote. I didn't know we would be talking on this, or I would have prepared it. It was in a fucking, it's a book that is a series that is like in the D&D realm about this dark elf that came out to live from the dark under the ground into like the light, and his trials and tribulations. And there was a moment where he talked about nostalgia. I read this like a week ago and I was like, holy fuck. I read it aloud to my wife. I was like, this is like an incredibly poignant view on this topic. And it's like how damaging it can be. I was like, holy shit. Like I never thought about it, especially when we're in this wave of nostalgia right now, you know?
There's something
it almost makes me want to pull out my iPad and like figure out that thing and read it, but I won't do it.
You can do it real quick if you want while I say this, if you want to find it to quote it accurately.
Well, I don't want to not pay attention to you as well.
Well, I mean, I think you can multitask of it at all people.
I do have that ability. You're not wrong.
Just a few minutes ago that kind of really struck me, and it's not something I've really talked about, but it is. You said something. Okay, let me kind of piggyback off of what you said. So you had said,
"You're good."
I changed from being called Mark to I wanted to use my name. So growing up in high school, I had gotten the nickname of Doug because I looked like the cartoon character Doug, and it was the thing that.
How funny is that?
Yep, Doug Funny. I even had the flat top and everything, so kind of just worked, and that was like my nickname for the long.
Sorry, go on.
So that was my nickname for the longest time. Like that's how people like I would even introduce myself as that. And it became a thing where once I moved away from home and like kind of started being on my own, I went by my name. And I remember an ex of mine was just like, you have a nice name. Like, why don't you use it? And I was like, I don't know. And then she was like, that isn't you. Like, that's just a character you're playing. Like it wasn't even like a name you wanted. It just was given to you. And I was like, well, that's kind of how names work. Like you're not really, you just get them. Like that's kind of how nicknames work. Like, and I just remember like, yeah, I guess like, I mean, at the ripe age of like 20, I think it was like 22 or maybe 23, where I was like, I'm just going to start using my name. And it just kind of started the shift I noticed of how again, kind of talking about your intentions. Like it seems like once you kind of go into the world, not playing a character, not as a pseudonym basically of yourself, but that it seems like even how you interact with people and everything else completely changes. And I don't know if you felt the same way when you made that noticeable change of how you wanted to present in name moving forward.
I do, and I did feel a big shift. And sometimes, like, I will say that my life vastly shifted after I changed to that name. And I think there were times in my life where I'm like, should I just call him by Mark? Like, was life better as Mark? I like pulled the nostalgia thing with that. Oh, here it goes. I found it. Hold on. Okay, hold on. It was in 2 parts. Okay. Nostalgia is possibly the greatest of the lies that we all tell ourselves. It is the glossing of the past to fit the sensibilities of the present. For some, it brings a measure of comfort, a sense of self and of source. But others, I fear, take these altered memories too far, and because of that, paralyze themselves to the realities about them. How many people long for that past, simpler, and better world, I wonder, without ever recognizing the truth that perhaps it was they who were simpler and better, not the world around them. It's interesting, right? I am not reading that book for philosophical purposes. It's just like easy, dumb D&D reading, but it was cool. It was a cool thing to pop up.
But I think that again, like I notice, and maybe we can kind of get a little spacey with some of this, where I might be going with this, but I tend to find if you actually are more focused in what the world around you is showing you, there's sometimes like things like that where it's like I'm doing something that's not. Yeah. And it's like, to me, it's like you could have read that passage and just Yep, I read it. But the fact that you were like, wait a minute, it strikes something up in me. It makes me feel something when I read that. I'm gonna
Yeah.
go talk to
And
someone
I
else
think
about
when
it.
100%. And I think that it goes back to that spark thing. The spark for me is a multitude of things. And it is what I mentioned before, but it is also like what you just did. Like you just did. Uh sorry for people listening. I was pointing and I was awkward because of cameras. Anyways. um like the whatever term you want to use for it. The basic term is the universe, but it is so Instagramized that it's weird to say the universe. But in this existence, we are here for a short time, and there is a GPS for us out there. And there are things, if you notice them, I call them omens, that if you are aware of them, they will help guide you towards better things in this existence. They will help you show you what you need to learn to grow to be the best version of yourself, whether that's a husband, a father, an artist, a musician, whatever it may be. It will help you. And this life is a fucking fantastic place if you let it be, and if you see it for the right ways, and if you choose the right lens to look through.
I think it's funny too, and I kind of want to get your take on this. I've been holding on to it because I was like, oh, I know we're going to talk, and I want to get like kind of. I thought of this, and I want to throw it to you and see like where you go with it. That maybe unlocks some other shit in my own brain. But I was talking with Garrett from Silent Planet about a week or so ago at this point, and he had said something. I just really like fixated on it, because we got to talking about sort of kind of ethereal shit. And at one point, he was talking about how, like, there's apparently, I believe he said that there are 10 dimensions and that we're kind of
Mhm.
exist, I guess, in 3 at any given time,
Mhm.
typically. And so at one point, though, later, he was talking about how we as humans typically only use 10% of our brains. And I was like, what is it
Mhm.
about the power of 10? And I haven't done any more research, but I've been thinking about that. Like, why in that conversation?
Or
And
the
I've never
prison of
put the
10.
court. Did you say prison?
I said, or the prison of 10.
Okay.
Only 10%, only 10 realms or layers. And then
Different.
just, that popped into my brain when you said that. It's a different way to think of it.
It is. I guess it's like a lot of things.
Yes,
Like where
in,
I get.
it's, I'm not like I've read many a book and learned many a things on these other different realms of existence. Um, you know, there is a layer there. I feel like there are layers on top of us as well, and that it is all in this realm. Like it's when people speak of energy and when people speak of those things, and you can control energy and pull in energy. There's something called chi or ki that you can only get from breathing and eating. So when people breathe deep and you do meditations and you do yoga, it's like you're breathing in that energy, right? And that is coming from the ether, the etheric realm, the next realm above. And then there's the astral realm, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There are a lot of good books that I would suggest if that is intriguing to anyone. One is called The Kabbalion. It is a very old book on the Hermetic principles. Um, if you are curious about omens, there's a book called The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. It's a story of this shepherd in Spain, and he goes all the way through this trials, and he follows the omens and that sort of stuff. But yeah, I fully agree with him, and I think that's one of the most fascinating things about this existence is the esoteric and the what actually exists in this reality and outside of it. And I think most people, especially in Western cultures and American cultures, are so concerned about so many things that are ultimately absolutely and utterly pointless. Uh, I think that that's why I enjoy meditation. I do for the reasons that I said earlier about, helping conquer anxieties and fears, but also the ideas and things that pop into my brain during meditation and the way I feel afterwards and the things that I feel more connected to. I think that there's a lot to be said about how we view this existence. And when you start to view this existence in ways that are not consumed by the mundane and consumed by the base things in this existence, your world gets really intriguing. Your everyday gets very intriguing. And things start finding you.
I think a lot of times when you have some of these conversations with people, it's interesting to see who kind of gravitates towards some of it and others who kind of repel against it. Like it's almost like a law of attraction of a sorts, like where it's like when you talk to some people, they're like, "Yeah, man," and then like you kind of get into some really heady conversations. And the thing to me about it is, it's weird that I guess sort of the judgment that kind of comes with some of these things, like like again, kind of going back to the Garrett from Silent Planet one, because that was one like I'm so looking forward to it coming out because there's some magic in that. Like
Yeah,
some
I'm
of the things
curious.
that we talked about really kind of got into like two people really giving and taking of themselves in a conversation, essentially strangers who had never met or talked ever, and then found a way to discuss a lot of crazy things. So like one of the things I started talking about was grounding. Something I try to be a little more mindful of, even just going in my backyard with the dog at some point and just kind of being grounded to the earth since I wear shoes most of my day. And I had
And
noticed
what does that
Garrett.
mean to you? I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you. My bad.
No, you're
Go
good.
on.
What is it? What does grounding mean to me? Just connecting, like literally putting your feet into the like. I became more mindful of it lately because at my job, it's like I have to like the last couple of jobs I've had. It's like I worked at like was running a hat store, so it's like I have to like wear a basketball jersey and then also wear like shoes to like go with my outfit because part of the job is that when people come in, they're trying to put an outfit together. So it's like I have to look good that someone can look at me and if I go, man, that the hat you're trying to buy, that'll go with this shirt. Or hey, here's an idea. I know you're trying to put this outfit together. Here's like a little small color that's in the thing, but I'm gonna tie it all together around this like secondary color in the outfit. And people might be like, what the fuck is this? But then like when you see how I've connected it all, you're like, yo, that's like crazy. I never would have noticed that because I pay attention to like the little things. And
You did
so
show up to Grand Rapids the other day with some nice color combos, and then you went
yeah.
home and you changed and you had all different color combos. So I noticed it. Anyways, go on.
So it was a thing where, like, even now, it's like I work like in a making inks and stuff like that at a screen printing place, and I'm just in a dark, not a dark room, but like in a dark corner by myself, and I'm isolated. And the one thing I do love about that is I can listen to, like, I realized I have the luxury of being able to take in different media now. So like, I'll be like, I'm gonna put on Netflix, I'm gonna watch comedy, or I'm gonna listen to YouTube because I can don't have to be confined to just what's on a podcast or what's on my iTunes or whatever, that I can kind of
Yeah, that's
expand
awesome.
what information and stuff I want to take in. But with all of that, I kind of also realized when our road was being torn up that it's like I have dirt everywhere. I have ground, like everything around me because I have a school across from me is mostly concrete and like not a lot of grass necessarily. And so it just was a thing that, especially during the kind of the pandemic too, that I was like, I kind of miss Bridget and I often go on quick adventures. So it's like we go to the beach. And I realized that I've always kind of grounded actually. Something in me as a sense of being a kid, my mom and I were always this way. Like if there was a body of water, we'd take off our shoes, regardless of how cold or not it was, and go put our feet into the body of water and just stand in it for, 5, 10, 15 minutes. And then when I thought about that, and every time I now try to ground at home, like playing with the dog or whatever for a little bit, I somehow get kind of transported. Like the other day when I did it, I don't know why. I think there is because there's some dew on the ground because I did it first thing in the morning. And I was immediately taken back to putting my feet into this river in Colorado when we were like out there and the water was fucking freezing. But I just sat there and like sat on a rock, put my feet, like most of my legs in the water and just looked around at like the mountains and everything around me because I was like, I may never be here again. So enjoy like this moment and like be present. thinking about like when I put on I have a pair of Nikes that I wear that I bought trail shoes when we were out in Zion because I wanted a better shoe. But now because of all the water and like rivers and stuff that we had to walk through, they still have that like red caking of like the ground on it. And every time I look at that, I'm kind of immediately transported back to that hike for like hours and hours. And to me, like that's the thing is it's like it's not for me, it just kind of is. It's sort of like like what meditation does for you to a degree, where it's like it makes me just think of something and be more present of somewhere I was, where I am, what I'm thankful for, and then just kind of move on in the day.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think grounding is a very, very important thing to do, and reconnecting to the earth and nature is a very important thing to do for anyone in humanity. I think it helps you connect to Mother Earth. You know, it helps you, like you just said, it helps you connect to you, and it helps you connect to the reason you exist. You know, and there's a whole layer of energetic things that happen when you do that. If you want me to go down that road, we can. I don't want to bore people, but
No.
it you know, it's a very important thing to do.
Where are you going to go with it?
Oh, you want to do it? Okay. Well, you know, so one of the meditations that I do is a visualization, and it's something that I can do really quick, like while I'm just going to the restroom or something, or I can uh, take longer in meditation if I need to. But I imagine like above is the source, whatever you want to call it. That's a whole other conversation. And whatever you're comfortable with using. And then I imagine that connecting to me and through me to the earth. And the earth is a big green ball of energy, right? And then I imagine the earth as a vacuum. I picture this vacuum. It changes from time to time. Sometimes it's like a standard Dyson. Sometimes it's like a big scrapey thing. So whatever. And I vacuum out all of my bad energy, starting from head to toe. Anything that's bad, anything that hurts physically, anything that's strange, anything that I just feel down in my head, I vacuum it and I give it to the earth, because the earth can transmute, like an alchemy. It can transmute the bad into good. And that is one of the things that grounding does, is the earth will connect and take your energy and give you good energy, because it is like a filter. And it's not gonna, the more people that do this, it's like, oh, the earth is now polluted because people are grounding too much. Like it doesn't work like that. It's infinite. So I give it all my bad, right? And I finish that. I go around the space around us, our energetic field, commonly referred to as the aura, and I cleanse that as well. And then I turn that little vacuum off, and I bring in from the source, whatever you want to call it, and I refill with good, my body, and then around me, right? So that can take seconds, and or it could take a couple minutes, whatever. And every fucking time I feel better. Every fucking time I feel like that stifle and weight and struggle is gone, and it's fucking fantastic. So that's my way of trying to help visualize what's happening when you're grounding. You put your feet in, the earth's going to take that away from you and give you good, right? And you're going to connect to that. Also, there are different energy systems that exist, and different cultures have different names for this. The one that we are most comfortable, or not comfortable, but familiar with in the West is the chakra system, right? So you have 7 different energy points. Like I said, different points, different cultures, different beliefs, different practices believe in, they are in different places. But there is the root chakra, which is around your groin, right? And that is the grounding, which you're connecting with and opening up when you're grounding. Then above that is your sacral, and that is kind of to do with a little bit of confidence and self-worth. Then there's the solar plexus, and that's where energy comes in and from out, the chi and the ki and everything. When you're focusing on that, that's where that comes in and out. In every version I've ever studied of that culture, it's the same place. It's right here, kind of in between your heart and your chest here. Then there's the heart chakra, then there's the throat chakra, the third eye, and the crown. And so that is a system that, when intentionally connected to and understood, and trying to your attempt through meditation or whatever it may be to open them, when you're energetically open with that, it's a different existence. You're not sick. You feel fantastic. You have tons of energy. You can be the best version of yourself. It's fucking wild, man. And I know it sounds ridiculous, and I'm sure a lot of people are just rolling their eyes and maybe stopped here, but that's fine. That's you. It'll make sense eventually, or it won't, and that's fine. But it's that's a 101 layer of something that exists and people hear about every day, but don't fully understand and don't really take advantage of in this existence. Even that's 101 basics, like I said.
Since we're kind of in this realm of our conversation, I feel like this would be a as good of any to discuss this. If you're not comfortable with it, let me know and I can cut it out or move on. But so I'm gonna I'm gonna go back just a little bit. So you had done Pure Pleasure podcast with Dewey, and it was kind of one of the first times, like I remember telling Dewey when he sent me the episode, it was like, I think that's the first time Porter has ever openly talked about, a lot of what, meditation and a lot of these other things that he reads and is interested in. And it's awesome because like it shows that he felt comfortable discussing these things with you, because they're not, it's not things that I think he would just naturally say, not because he doesn't feel confident in his beliefs in these things or how they work for him, but just, I think there's it's my thing. It doesn't need to be, out there unless if anyone wants to know, I'm willing to talk about it or whatever. But so I was just like, it was really cool to that he felt comfortable enough and that you guys went down that road, because I think that was made the conversation infinitely more interesting, just going down that rabbit hole. So from there, and with obviously with you and Julia doing like your Twitch streams and stuff like that, with art and a bunch of other things, you and I and subsequently Julia had talked about tarot reading. And I was telling you, I was like, I've always wanted to do it, but I'm like terrified. And you were like, of what?
Terrified?
I didn't. Yeah. Okay, there you go. But that's a great Atreyu song too. But it was a thing where I remember you, and I've since latched, saying, about that quote that you were reading. I've heard this sentiment of that you said, and I've repeated it to myself over and over so many times, where it's like, where you said, what are you afraid of? The information? It's like you can be given a set of information and then you choose how you deal with it. Either you believe it, you don't, you see how you like it affects you moving forward. Like it's up to you, but it's just a set of information, and what you do with it from there is up to you. And, you had equated it to like, how did you feel about when you started going to therapy? And I was like, I was scared. And you go, but now what? And I was like, it's great. And I use all these tools that I was given to move forward through life. And it was very helpful. And you're like, all right, well, try this if you're interested. And something I've not really talked about this experience because there's just not really been a way to do it. But I think what was interesting, and I think it kind of really, I think, is how both you and Julie are, and why I think you're so like a good match for each other, is because like at one point when Julia was flipping the cards that I got, and she's explaining very well, like, this is what this is, and explaining what the cards mean. And that, like, I learned that cards being upside down or whatever have different meaning. Like everything kind of has a meaning. But there was something that even in our reading that Julia said that I was like, oh, that's so profound. In that she was like, some people would say that this is negative and that this is a bad thing or whatever. I choose to look at it as, this is information you're given, and it can be bad if you choose not to do something about it, or it can be the thing that turns everything around and allows you to be a positive, like have something positive happen for you. And I feel like that's that also has been a thing where I think being intentioned in your outward mindset, like, I could look at something like a friend of mine is kind of going through like a rehab type process thing of getting sober. And at one point when they were talking about having to go to rehab, it was, well, I gotta go to fucking rehab. And like, when I'm done, like after like 7 or 8 months, I get to escape for like a couple of days, and then I can like maybe hang out with some people. And I go, dude, already just change how you're thinking about it. Don't say I get to escape. Say I'll have earned the ability to go see my friends. Like, don't, if you,
Mhm.
all it took is just flipping it, like how you're talking about it. And it goes from being
Mhm.
a negative to a positive. And if you go
Mhm.
into this situation, one that you're not looking forward to, but you know and understand that you have to do it for the betterment of you, just even flipping that intention
Mhm.
should make it a way better experience for you. And I feel like that was something for me, like dipping my toes into that with Julia was a very was one that was very satisfying because it mirrored so much of my therapy. And I even told Julia that I was like, this mirrored so much of what I learned and needed to learn about myself in therapy that it's almost like a reaffirmation of things that I already know and I just need to
Yeah.
put into practice. But it's uh it's a thing like when I've kind of told people about my experience, like it's a lot of people are like, well, how did you feel? Was it scary? And all these kind of things. And I think it's just interesting that when you start kind of, again, talking about some of these things, like noticing how there seems to be a negative stigma attached to some of this. And then it's like, oh, you're weird. Or like, what if you're tapping into some other shit that you're not supposed to? And it's like, I mean, maybe if that happens, but it's like, couldn't we go back and argue that it's like, again, the energy you want, are you bringing, and welcoming this in because it's what you're attracting?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to respond to in that. I think tarot is a fascinating thing, and it is, like I've said a few times in this, it's a GPS. It's a mirror, it's a check, it's there's a lot of ways to use it. You know, there are I use it every day after I meditate when I wake up and I meditate, I do my morning rituals, and then I draw a card and I just say, what do I need to know today? And so
Hmm.
I pull a card, I look at it, I look at the little book that comes with it because I have a lot of different sets and I enjoy how each set has its own different feeling. And for different, when I have instinctual pulls to go towards a different set and they're a different day, then I'll do that. Like this, I don't usually use the same one every day. But if you are interested in tarot, the humans listening to this, the Rider Waite set is where you should start. It has fantastic symbolism on every card. Every card is accurate. The book that accompanies it is simple, and you can learn the basics of what you know the major arcana are, the minor arcana. The major arcana is a journey. It's 22 cards or 26 cards. I can't remember right now. And it's essentially starting from zero, which is the Fool, to ending in I don't remember the fucking last one, but it's the journey of this life in a spiritual form. Um, and so when you pull those cards, like Julia, I'm guessing one of the cards you got was either Death, the Tower, or the Devil, because usually those are cards that people get and they're like, oh fuck, I got the Tower card. That means
I think I
like
did get the
something's gonna
tower card.
fucking that's something's gonna break around me, something's gonna crumble, something is gonna whatever. But like I have the fucking Tower card tattooed on my arm intentionally because I
Hmm.
enjoy that feeling. I enjoy just shaking up and the twisting and the turmoil and the hard resets to bring it back that this life can give you, and that how you can choose to learn from them and grow from them, because when you have them, you are going to be better if you, like you just said, allow yourself to see it that way. It's all about perspective in this existence. It's the most important thing. So tarot is fantastic. Like I said, I use it every day, and I will be like, it'll just be something to think about. You know,
Hmm.
I read the card. I'm like, okay, let me think about that throughout the day, and guaranteed there is something every fucking day that happens. And the skeptics can be, oh well, it's so general that it could be this. Fuck it, who cares? If you want to believe that, if you want to be skeptical about everything, and you want to have a science-driven life, great. You're going to have a great life. That's fine. I choose a different path, and I choose, like you said earlier, like I have studied a lot of different types of religion and spirituality and science and math and all of these things. And I have taken throughout my life a puzzle piece, and I've made my own puzzle from these different things for what makes the most sense for me. And what makes the most sense for me may not work for you. It may not work for a person down the street. But that's the fun of it. It's the fun of being open-minded and learning and trying things. And you can have the power to be like, nah, that's not for me. Like Christianity, not my thing. I think there's a lot of power in it. I think there's a lot of fun stuff. And I respect the power that it gives people and the comfort that it gives people. I think it's fantastic. And I think you should have the freedom to use and practice any sort of thing like that you want, as long as it doesn't harm anyone else. That's the most important thing here. But going back to like tarot and stuff, it is a great guide and mirror. And I think honestly, the art looks fucking cool too. And like I was saying, the Rider-Waite is the major one that everything is built upon for the most part. There's another deck called the Thoth deck that was created by this magician called Aleister Crowley, which is fascinating in its own right for many reasons. If you study that man and that history and that deck, cool as fuck art. First time I saw that deck was from Skylar from He Is Legend, and he read my cards and somewhere in fucking New York or Long Island, I think. And it was a fantastic time. I learned a lot that day about art and spirituality. It was really fucking cool. So thank you, Skylar. You're fantastic.
Great, dude.
And then there's the fucking there's the Nightmare Before Christmas ones. There's Dungeons and Dragons ones. There's everything. I mean, you can start to get the kitschy and the fun ones later once you've built that foundation. But I think like going back a little bit to what Garrett said, like I think that there are layers in this existence, and there are things outside of what we can perceive with our eyes and our ears. And I think that it's a way to connect to that. And once you start intentionally connecting to that, it's kind of like those, whatever it may be outside of this energetic 3D, three dimensions, start to be like, oh, you're interested in this stuff. Huh. Okay, here you go. And it starts pouring other stuff. And it's like, what do you like? And it helps you figure it out. And it's really fucking cool. And I'm still on that journey as we speak. I currently am I didn't talk about this. We bought a house in Germany. I'm in a room that is, this whole level of the house is going to be completely renovated. This wasn't touched since the 50s. We just got our fucking freight in from America. So the rest of this room is just fucking boxes and piles of clothes. And here's a new base that I got. It's an absolute mess. I actually framed unintentionally the only nice section of this room. But all this is going to go. Like the wallpaper is gone. All this fucking nonsense is everything. So my point in that is like moving to fucking Germany, big tower moment, big shift, big change in my life. It could be a death card. It could be a tower card. It could be, the death of who I was before and that version of myself to begin again and begin anew. And I have a whole room through there that was a bathroom first that is fucking hilarious, by the way. It is so bad it's good. Straight out of the 50s. It's like pink and like the tiles are like smoky pink and like the ceilings like wood. It's fucking, we're gonna get rid of it, but it's so bad it's good. Anyway, so on the other side of that is where I'll have just like a full-on study and music and art room that is completely disconnected from where I am now, which will be like design and physical art, right? Mm-hmm. So I'll have these different spaces and different places that like I have books that I've bought and I've collected over the years that are untouched and stuff that I want to delve into and study other cultures, different views on these things, studying the Norse gods, studying the Celts, studying all of these things that are just, I want to try and experiment with and see what resonates with me and see what I want to bring along in my journey,
There's a couple of things to that that I want to touch on. So, last time we talked, and this wasn't in, I don't think it was in the episode I ended up cutting out of the 6.5 hours that we did that Twitch stream.
That was a marathon.
And it still baffles me to a degree that people like the next day in your Discord thing were just like, I could have gone for another 6 hours. And I was like, really?
That era was wild, man. Just Twitch was such a cool experience. I don't have time for it is anymore like I did then, and I'm sad for that. And I still love those people, and I see them at shows all the time, and I still talk to them in Discord from time to time. But it was such a fucking rewarding time. It really was.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining me on that.
Yeah, thanks for allowing me to share your platform and discuss. But the thing I was going to talk about was at way in the end of like our conversation, I had talked about how you were, back home at your family home and stuff like that, and you're working on it to, at the time, essentially start making it your and Julia's and your mom's. I think from all accounts, basically, that it
Mhm.
was then going to kind of be yours to be in, and you were starting to kind of change that. And I had asked you initially, like, how does it feel to be back home? And you're talking about like the sense of pride you had in that this is ours and it's been in our
Mhm.
family and like all these kind of things. And so it becomes this thing where when I kind of had started putting the pieces together that you had moved, and I was like, this is very random. Like you had seemingly established and set roots that you were putting down and then just kind of picked up and left very, very quickly, it seemed like. So it was a thing to me where it's like I wondered, um, was there, and it sounds like not, I kind of thinking about like, the tower card or whatever, but was there any trepidations of feeling like maybe you were losing something? That means, and it's
Definitely.
not lost because you still have it, like your mom still lives there and stuff like that. It's still home, but I guess kind of what has that been like, that transition for you?
Um, it was a big choice. It really was a big choice. Um, Julia and I kind of talked about it in May of this year, and we had started to have the feelings of, do we really want to live in Alabama forever? And it wasn't the home, and it wasn't my family, and it wasn't the property. It was uh, I hate being political.
Yep,
Um,
I think that's all you need to say.
America's in an interesting place, and I think that for a while now, I felt living where we lived, especially, I felt uh, the attempt to be poisoned on all fronts.
Hmm.
With the mentality of the way that American government and policies and culture is, with the food, it's absolute fucking garbage that we can get our hands on, and it's poisoned and laced in chemicals and all this bullshit. And to get the better versions of stuff, it's unaffordable. And I can't, which it's hard to afford to exist there. I mean, it's hard to fucking thrive and have any sort of good life there. It's hard to pay rent. It's hard to pay utilities. It's hard to make money. It's hard. It's just fucking hard. And we started talking a lot about life here and what different it could be. And when we went to Europe in January, February, March of earlier this year, we did the supported bullet,
Mhm.
and I came over with Julia in June, early in January, and stayed with her parents, which are about 3.5 minutes that way, past the church from that was built in the early 1400s. Um, and it was just beautiful out here and very calm and very wonderful, and just had a fantastic time. And we heard, what they paid for their house, and just it was an interesting thing. And it kind of made us reminded us because we spent Julia, especially because I was on tour for a big chunk of that, but she spent a lot of time here. And so we just talked a lot about how different life could be and the pros and the cons. And yes, you're right. We thought that would be my forever home in Alabama. And it still is, it's still in my family, and I still want to spend as much time as I can there. And who knows what the future holds? We could be back there eventually. But um, when we started thinking about the pros of being here with healthcare, is affordable, life is affordable. From the first week I was here, I went to their version of like a CVS or a Walgreens called DM, and I bought the exact same things that I would at Target or any of those things. And I did a price comparison, and it was literally double for the exact same product in the States. Same amounts, same everything. And I was like, holy shit, it's not the same brand.
Right.
And I was like, holy shit. And then you go here, you go to the store, you go buy bread, and you get this big fucking loaf of like the best bread you've ever tasted to make these lovely sandwiches that you have 2 slices of fucking bread with some meat or some cheese or some jelly or some spread or some Nutella or some butter and honey or whatever you put on it. It's all delightful. And you're full. Like, that's a meal. You have 2 pieces of bread in the States. Like, we saw this meme last night with this guy that moved from the States to Berlin. And he's like, you have 2 pieces of bread in the States, you're poor. Somebody's gonna be like, yo, what the fuck's up? Like, let me give you $5, get a real meal. Like, you won't be satiated. So simple things like that, simple things like this culture is, don't get me wrong, Germany has its issues, Europe has its issues, everywhere has its fucking issues, let's be clear. But this culture with the government is based on allowing their citizens to find happiness and to find space for themselves and their families. And they help provide that. And it's fucking night and day than what we can comprehend in the States, because they don't give a fuck about us in the States. And they never have. And I've never felt safe, and I've never felt secure. And I'm not afraid of getting fucking shot up every 2 seconds. If we do procreate, we can send our kids to a school right down the street, and we can just let them fuck off and walk by themselves. We don't have to be afraid of that. It's just like, there are so many perks, right? And we're by her family. We're by, we're like in the fucking mountains. Like, we walk out our back door, and there's like massive fields for June to go play in. Go further than that, there's woods. It's incredibly beautiful and incredibly calm and incredibly nice here. And not to mention this house, I don't want to talk numbers, but like, we bought this house that has 3 fucking levels on it. We can live up top. We have room for art. We have room for a garden. We have room to grow creatively and as a family and whatever, and have friends come over and stay whenever they want. And this place costs less than it would for a 1 month, like per month studio fucking apartment in LA. Or almost anywhere these days. Like, it's mad. So all of those things and all of that, like, those factors kind of just were like, fuck. And also, to be perfectly selfish and frank, like, I love living here. I love being close to a church from the 1400s. I love seeing the architecture. I love seeing old shit. I love being able to take a fucking 30-euro flight to Barcelona if I wanted to, or go drive to Amsterdam, or go get on a train and go to Munich or Berlin and whatever. Like, I love being able to go to these fucking places that all of my life seems so exotic, and now it's just in my backyard. It's incredible for me.
I think that's something as I've gotten older, like Bridget and I have obviously talked about if we ever move from here in Grand Rapids. And we talk of traveling abroad, but it just never happens because it's always either like can't take the time to really go and explore like we would want to, which are just honestly excuses. Because it's like instead of taking,
but also the American work system
trips,
only gives you the American work system only gives you a few weeks off a year. Not enough time to go anywhere.
No, and
give you a month here.
Yeah, and so it just becomes this thing where doing this podcast, like I've talked to numerous people that aren't from here in the States, and I remember talking to, I think it was I can't remember the band name, but I think she was over in Germany, and we got to talking about somehow but our differences in culture and growing up, her abroad and me here in the States, because she was talking about how she was looking forward to going to California and seeing her sister. And I was like, this might sound like a jaded American take, but I was like, does the US is it still a beacon of opportunity and freedoms and all these things? Because I, as someone who lives here, doesn't feel like that's a thing. But I also don't know any differently. So to me, it wouldn't, like, what would be more adventurous and more interesting would be like the experience in sort of what you just said, where it's like, oh, I could go 20 minutes and I'll be in another country. I can go here and like you can see different cultures and civilizations and stuff that still is rooted in where we came from. And I'm going to say this too, being from Delaware originally, like one of the first state in the US and part of the original 13 colonies, growing up, it was always, I mean, shit, I haven't been to Delaware in probably like a decade plus at this point, but when you go downtown, it still is the old cobblestone roads. All the buildings are still like historic buildings. Like everything has been preserved to a certain degree of what life was, what founded all of this. And to me, we don't do that. We don't do that in this culture. Everything is tear it down, make it new, make it new, make it new. And I believe it is the Japanese culture. I believe it's the Japanese culture that when something breaks, instead of discarding the item, they fix it with gold because then the imperfection becomes
Japan.
okay, the imperfection becomes the most valuable part of it. And I think that that's such a, again, it's all about perspective and just flipping a narrative maybe, but it's like, instead of being like, well, this thing's fucking broken and it sucks, it's like, no, it's fixed and it's awesome. And like now the imperfections kind of make it more valuable and more unique and more interesting. And now it has more of a story.
Yeah.
And I feel like the culture and the idea and the understanding of that, I feel like is so prevalent from what I understand from secondhand overseas, that it's like, we want to remember where we came from. This is our history.
Yeah.
This is who we are.
I mean,
this is what made us.
we literally, we can do whatever we want. We can do whatever we want to the inside of this house. The outside of it, we can do nothing. We can paint it, but we can repaint it the same color. We cannot change it. Like her parents got new windows in their old house, right? My house was built in 1805. Theirs was built in 1800. This town was founded in 1313. It's not even a town. It's a fucking village. There's 1,100 people here. And when they got new windows, their windows were brown on the front. So they had to paint their new fabricated, nice German windows brown on the outside to match. So they have the rules like that, especially in this country. There's a lot of rules in Germany for the better, for most of the part, but it's intense. My wife always says that that Germans have tons of rules, but we find very creative ways to break them. And where we in the States just don't give a fuck. It's just still the Wild West every time. It's like, I don't fucking care. And I have a lot of that mentality, especially being from country in the South. But when you think about America and you think about the older areas of America, like Boston and Philadelphia and New York, and there are a lot of old buildings still, and there are a lot of cobblestone streets, and there are the older things that were built originally are still there, right? Because they are able to be maintained. But one of the major issues with us in the States is like things were built at a point in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, the suburban houses to just sprawl and have these big whatever homes. They were built with consumerism and capitalism in mind. The builders didn't give a fuck about that house. They just wanted to sell something, and they wanted it to be as affordable as possible for them to build it, and then they can sell it for the most amount of money. That's all that fucking mattered. And that's why we have this gulf in America of like, oh, but you aren't able to keep up this building that was built in the 50s that looks cool as fuck, that has all these things that would be historic, because it's going to fall down, and it would cost more money to replaster and redo whatever. Then, I think that's a big problem. Or our culture just doesn't give a fuck and they tear it down. There's so many houses in LA, in the areas that I lived in, that were gorgeous homes from the 10s and 20s, and then people just tore them down to make McMansion type shit, which is a shame. So it's part cultural, it's part because of capitalism, and part because of the structure of the homes, and there's many factors to it.
This is maybe a weird question, and maybe too inside baseball. Do you feel that I don't even know the word I want to use, but your adventurous nature, I guess, I don't even know what to say. But moving like this now, this is the second time you moved out of the country and lived, as far as I know. do you feel, because Brandon just recently also did a pretty big life move and literally moved from home to Tennessee over by now.
We both moved
I
in the
joked,
same month.
yeah, that he
Unplanned. We both moved in August.
because I joked with him. I was like, "Oh, what are you, Maddie's neighbor now?" He goes, "Yeah, he's like 3 houses down." I was like, "God, everyone lives in that fucking area." But is that, kind of going back to like being more adults now in the band and kind of doing these things? Is that something maybe where a strength in bond between you two of maybe the trepidations he might face of like it's kind of scary, moving somewhere new. I've always been here. You've now done it a couple of times. Like, is there any advice to offer?
The advice always dumbs down, no matter what the question is, to be the spark. It does. And that guidance that I have, that spark, once we started talking about it, I'm like, no, we need to move. It is right. This is the right thing for us. I knew once we started talking, and especially once we started looking, we knew everything just started unfolding. We got this house way faster than anything ever should have gotten. The lady only wanted to sell it to us. We got so much money off of it somehow. It was just silly how, like, the owner still had to live up in the top for 2 months.
You had an
because it
Ozark
happened so
moment with
fast.
that.
Yeah, it was the same thing, very similar. On Halloween, she gave us the keys and she was out. So we've been here for 5 days alone. My wife is right now above us painting the kitchen. Thank goodness, she's amazing. So we knew, and you just have to trust your gut, and you just have to trust, like, am I in the right place? Am I staying here because it's safe and it's easy? Am I staying here because it's what other people think I should do? Like, we moved back to Alabama, and we moved into my familial home in Alabama to be with my family and to help my family. And it was fantastic. And we did just that. We were there for some integral, massive family moments that I don't know what my mom would have done. I don't know what my aunt would have done. I don't know what things would have done if we weren't there. And once Julia and I started talking about the move, I was definitely like, fuck. Like, I moved to be with them. Now I'm leaving them. Like that, it's horrific. It's horrible. It's terrible to think about in my body, in my mind, in my everything, like, was like, fuck. Like, how do I leave now? You know? Am I going back on my word? Am I a shitty human being? And it was really fucking hard to make the choice to leave. But I had to leave for me and my family and for my wife and me. It was the right choice for us to make. And it's still hard every day. It's still hard all the time, There's still not like a rift, but there's still, like, my mom wasn't happy. She enjoyed us being there. She was grateful for there. She needs our help. But we had to do this for ourselves, And everyone I talked to about it, everyone that I discussed, my sister, my aunt, everyone was like, you have to do what's right for you.
Right.
And I'm like, okay. And I knew that, but it was like, it was good to hear that from those sources, And of course my mom said the same thing, but yeah, it was fucking hard, man. This one was a lot harder. When I moved to Germany in the first place, I was in LA and Glendale in 2015, paying $1,400 a month for a 1-bedroom apartment, not including utilities. And I was just like, I don't want to be here. Like, I met this girl. She's awesome. I don't want to do long distance. Let me move to you and just see how it goes. I can get an artist visa. I can stay there for a few years. We can see how this goes. And, it was fucking awesome. I really enjoyed living abroad and in that city and in that place and then in that, walkability of some cool old town. And that Darmstadt is a really special, unique place as well. I think I've talked about it in previous podcasts, but it was a fantastic time. And then, we got married, and I was in 2013 to 2015-ish. I lived in the Hollywood Hills with this artist lady that I met on a hike that is a whole nother conversation. But she needed some help. After Julia and I got married, we were visiting her, and she was having some major health issues and mental things. And we were like, Julia was like, we should offer to move in and help her, not get paid, but just be here and help her because we love her. And that was our intention. And that was our pull to like leave Germany and to go to the States. And Julia, before we met, had desires to like live in California and live a couple places. Like she almost moved to Fresno or somewhere. I don't remember why or how she would have moved there. But she moved somewhere in California that was like, you're there? You were gonna, okay. But so we were like, I knew that was kind of a dream for her. So I was like, let's do it. Let's move. And we talked to that lady and she was fine. And then that fell through and things happened. And I think other people got in her ear. And anyways, so we were like all gung-ho moving to America. So we're like, well, why don't we just move to Alabama? Like that's the long-term plan anyways. Let's just go ahead and go there. Let's go be with our family. Let's go take care of that. And let's just get to it. Like, and we, in our talks, because of my familial home there, we were like, we're always going to be there eventually. Let's just go. Yeah. And like, I'm kind of rambling now, but, we were there for just about 5 years and we knew when the time was up, or the new time to come to here. The time will never be up because it's mine and my family's, but still.
Time is now.
To leave and move to Germany.
Kind of going back more to the professional setting of your job, kind of had some really interesting, like last handful of shows, the Iron Maiden tour. How was that? Because when last time I saw you were about to do it. Like I think you were we were the following week or so.
Yeah, this last tour was probably one of the most unique tours we've ever done in our entire career. Like it started out as a simple co-headliner with Memphis, who like we know them. We love them. They're great humans, fantastic band. We've toured with them before. It was like and it's genuinely like a family. Like they're fucking fantastic. I really enjoy touring with them. We did like a co-VIP on this tour, and it was really, really fun getting to know them even more and spending more time with them. So it was started out with like that California's for Lovers, and then we did a co-headlining tour, and we were going to do that. I think we had a couple festivals, and then Iron Maiden asked us to play. We were like, okay, we're about to announce this other thing. We got to figure out the routing again. So we rerouted. So it ended heading up towards those 3 Canadian shows. But cool, we're ready to announce. I had already made the ad mat, like everything was ready. And then they were like, Godsmack wants you on some shows. And we're like, okay, we can't say no to that. Sure. And so we like, all right, sorry, Memphis, hold on 1 second. So we rerouted and changed some things. And so we had to add that. So this whole tour, essentially, we did like California's for Lovers, a week of headlining shows, give or take. Did Rocklahoma, 6 Godsmack shows, drove from Miami to Montreal, joined back with the tour, played with the tour for a bit, and then did 3 fucking Iron Maiden shows. And to answer your question, yes, they were fucking fantastic. They, I mean, what else? Like, what else can you do in your career besides what they've done? Like, they're fucking massive. They are gigantic all around the world. Anything they ever want to do. They were really welcoming, really kind, really respectful, gave us ample space and time. They brought us champagne on the first night and like a note. It was really good, especially because the last time we played with them was in Mexico in 2010, and I have literal actual dents in my skull right here from getting hit in the face with a metal spike while I was headbanging really fast during Bleeding Mascara. So I could have had an eye patch right now, but thankfully I don't. I have the spike somewhere. It's in I need to find it one of these days. But so those shows in Mexico, we did 2 shows, and it was like Steve Harris's daughter, Lauren Harris. It was Morbid Angel, Carcass, and us, and then Iron Maiden. So it was like black metal, and then us. and it was just weird. And there were 55,000 people there at one of the shows, and the first 5,000 do not want to see anything but Iron Maiden, and they are not shy about telling you that. And it got violent. They're just throwing shit at you. The rest of the people, circle pits, we sold out of all of our merch every time. It was fantastic. But so that was scary. And when they asked us to play again, we were like, yes, fuck yes, you cannot say no to this. But I had like a little bit of trepidation and a little bit of worry. And we got up in that first show in Calgary, I think was the first one, or Edmonton. I can't remember that right now. Anyways, it was fucking phenomenal. And I said on stage every night, I rarely say the same thing every night, but I had to these fans, like, music is fucking beautiful. And the supporters of music are one of the most incredible things that exists. Truly, like, the fans of Iron Maiden are so supportive of Iron Maiden and love it and care so much. It is fucking true magic. Like, it is beautiful. And I just had to tell them that. Yeah, it was very fun. I love it. Loved it.
There's it's funny thinking about some of the experiences. Like, because you, like I said, we saw each other, got to see each other twice in a week, which was kind of crazy. Because in the touring world, that usually doesn't happen, that you can kind of see somebody so quickly in a quick span like that. But getting to see the rave
night was blurrier. That's for sure.
Yeah, for you?
Yeah.
Okay. Because
I was being pulled so many directions.
I know the Grand Rapids night was.
There were so many people.
That was something. I think that might be the most hungover I've been in a long time.
Okay, no, I take it back. The rave was blurrier. Milwaukee was blurrier from when we were hanging out, not the whole night. Because there were so many people, and like,
well, it was the last day of
Destruction showed up, and I had friends. Yeah. The last day, there's so many things happening. That's true. The Grand Rapids show, I didn't drink for 3 or 4 days after that. That was
I didn't
fucked.
either.
Holy shit. I forgot. That was, I haven't been that hungover since I quit drinking in 2019.
Well, that was the funny thing too, is because like my friend Dale that works security at the venue,
super nice guy.
He was just like, he's super nice. And he was just like, I had a decision to make. I either was sleeping in my car or I had to go home. And he goes, Porter was just such a lovely guy, but he's like, he, in the nicest way possible, just wanted to, like, would be like, let's do a shot. Here's a drink, blah, blah, blah. It was very giving and social. And I was like, it caught me off guard because for the last probably 3 or 4 years, he hasn't been drinking. Mm-hmm. And I go, so I forgot that side of Porter where it's like, here's a beer. Here's a shot. Let's do this. And it's just, I don't know. It's the Southern hospitality thing, like in a nutshell. But it was just a thing where I was like, I knew I didn't have to work. And I go, but I also had that like stark realization as I watched the buses go and it's like 3:30 in the morning. And I'm like, yeah, they just get to like go to bed now. I gotta like find an Uber. I gotta go home. Thankfully, I took the next day off, but I was like, Jesus Christ, like this is something. Like, how do you do this? But I think what was kind of going to the rave though, it was so interesting because like I have been telling Bridget about it for the longest time, and it's honestly one of the only times I've ever pulled the "can I get backstage" thing because I don't ever care. But that was one where I was like, "There's something I've always wanted to see. That's a magical fucking place, and this might be like my one and only opportunity to go that weekend."
And it's fantastic that now they have made it so that bands can explore it easier.
Yeah.
Like before, that's why when you asked, I was hesitant. I'm like, yeah, I can try. Because you had to like twist the arm of everyone to go in there before. Now it's just open. You can go in whenever
it seems like they understand that like that people posting about it kind of draws people to go or want to go or something. I don't know. Granted, it's not. I don't think it's an open to the public thing at all.
No,
which is it's stupid because they should. Bands. Yeah, I was gonna say they should do. They could probably make some money, like letting.
They might do tours. Who knows? Yeah.
But it was a thing like. I think other than just me getting to experience like everything that pool is and the vibe of it, especially with the Ambassador Hotel across the street, Just was surreal. But I think the moment that'll like kind of be like a core memory unlocked was when I was like, hey, do you know, like, here's your thing in this corner.
Oh yeah, I couldn't find
And
it either. You had to find it for me.
And then watching you get to add the new date onto it, and then the
Yeah, so
realization
just
that
so
you
everyone
had been
knows, this so everyone knows, this venue in Milwaukee called the Rave is like a massive structure. It's huge, gigantic. You walk in and there's like a venue straight ahead, and there's that we normally play. There's a venue down below. There's another bar venue. There's a fucking like 5,000 plus ballroom up top that we played with Taste of Chaos and Deftones and all that. And we've played this place, was it like
10 times, I think.
plus times? And so there's this pool in the bottom. It's a massive swimming pool. This place was originally part of the Eagles Club, part of like a resorty kind of thing. Like, it just had everything for everyone, and it was a big hub in that area. And so like the venue in the bottom is on a bowling alley where it was. Like we probably are, that stage is probably where like the pins were. And so they have this massive pool. Bands from 20 years, 30 years have been going in there, and they'll like graffiti on the wall. There's like Alice in Chains and fucking everyone down there.
Mac Miller.
And Mac Miller wrote on there, and it was like weeks or less before he passed away. And it's a very ominous thing that he's written. You can Google Mac Miller, the Rave pool quote, and it's fucking cool to see. Yeah, and they've covered it up with like plexiglass to make it like stay. But years, the last time we played there, I think 2019, I wrote on the wall, like I wrote Atreyu, and then I looked up online every year we played, and I wrote like all the different things. And I thought I knew where it was, and I went and I couldn't find it. And there was this area where they had painted over for like a water damage or something. And so I was like, fuck, I think it was under there. And then you showed up and you're like, hey, there you are. I'm like, fuck. Yes. So good to see.
It's, I don't know, things like that it's like, that's not I don't know. It's like, in the grand scheme of things, it's a very nothing thing. Like, it's like, oh, there's a thing. But like, to see you have the realization of like, fuck, we had played here 1, 2, like watching you count how many times you played this venue over, I think it was 20 years from the first date to the last show. And we like,
played every room except the bar, every floor. It's fucking cool.
But like, to me, it was interesting just to be like 20 years into a career, and like you're excited about adding to the lineage of like just you guys playing here and being like, we've played here 10 times over 20 years. That is fucking crazy. While I'm sitting in a pool staring at like an Alice in Chains like thing, like, and just being like, it's crazy.
It's a really cool spot. I filmed, Julia got me a drone for Christmas, and I filmed Dan playing saxophone in the pool, all with my drone, and it was very, very fun as well to capture that. And that people might see that footage coming up one of these days. We got something.
How was kind of I'll kind of start wrapping this up so I don't keep you too long, so you can go help your wife paint.
Thanks.
The videos you've been putting out, for the most part, it's so interesting because I feel like the songs are serious, but then the presentation you present for the visuals to accompany the music are not. How has that been? Do you feel that maybe that is a slight hindrance to the message? I mean, to me, it's a full encapsulation of all of you. It's like, you are serious. The music is the serious part, but because like I'm thinking of like Evan coming up during songs and dancing with you.
I don't feel like it's a hindrance at all.
Okay.
I think that for almost our entire career, we've wanted to do videos like this, but it didn't work out for one reason or another. And when we were on tour, I think it was Trinity, we were talking about, we knew Drowning we wanted to put that out first, and we knew we wanted to make a video for it. And so we were like, what do we do? And, we had serious topics. We had joke things, we didn't really have any joke things. we had like serious things like, what if we did this? What if we did that? And then just us sitting around in the front lounge. I think Sandlot was on, and it was the scene where with the pool with like Wendy whatever, and like they like fakes like he's drowning to like Wendy fakes like he's drowning to get the kiss, and it's like a whole thing. And we were like, what if we just did this video where we like show up at like a pool and just like start pushing people in and just like are these like gang of like swimmers, and then one person's like, what if we're like synchronized swimmers, like what if it, and like we just started going back and forth, and this is the kind of shit we've wanted to do the whole time, and it just never has happened. And so we were like, why don't we just do this? Like, we are as people extremely funny. We are very serious as well. Our music is very serious. There's no song that's like a joke song. We're not like Tenacious D or something, which would be fucking awesome. But Brandon can sing as good as him. Maybe we should cover a Tenacious D song. Anyways, we just kind of started like, let's just be who we are. Like going back to what we said earlier, like I think the most important thing a band, an artist, a human, anyone, anything in any form can be is themselves. I think that's the biggest gift that you can give anyone, is the best version of yourself, you know? And I think that we are doing that musically, and we are wanting to just like continue that and echo that through our video making, you know? So we did the first one with drowning, and Brandon fucking airbrushed abs on him, and we're throwing his kids in the pool, and I'm fucking shoulder checking people and getting pants and showing double beards, and Dan's climbing this thing that's not tall and he's horrified of it, and it just is a joke because he's short. Like there's so many different layers of it that's just fucking hilarious, right? And so we're like, okay, well, what do we do next? Okay, well, the label wants to watch me burn second. All right, what if we just did like a video like everyone is, you know, does these days, where you're like tough guys, like metal band, fucking warehouse fire. And we're like, why don't we just do that? But we just get like electrocuted and lit on fire and all this shit. And so we did. And it was funny because the day after we filmed that video, or the day before, or no, the day after, Brandon and I were on Kerrang morning show, and we met with a lady, lovely lady. I cannot remember her name, and I blame my ADHD for not being able to remember people's names like this. I feel so bad because she was wonderful. Sorry if you're listening to this. But she was like talking about the drowning video and how refreshing it was. And she's like, you know, everybody just does these videos of like warehouses and fire these days. And Brandon and I just look at each other like, yeah, you just wait. Because we had literally just filmed a video of us doing that, but in a different way. And then, you know, going on with God and Devil, I filmed that all across Europe, and it came from Brandon. We were walking in January to meet our label, and I had my camera, as I always do, and I was taking a photo of something. He came up while I was taking the photo. He's like, what if we do a video that's like your style photos? I was like, okay. And we're about to start a Europe tour. Fuck it. So I started doing that, and we're like, let's just start thinking of funny ways to like interact with whatever, you know, and like throughout the whole tour. And so every day we just think of something new. And Dan, okay, we're gonna go. I want to take the guys to the necropolis in Glasgow, which is like this hill with these graves on it. Like, Dan, bring your violin, because he had bought a violin. Like, and we have him playing fucking solos in a graveyard, like, and we just had fun with it, right? And I think that was that really showed our, you know, a fun side of us. And then we released after that. There was a live video for Capital F. Then we had a couple like lyric-y kind of videos. We feel like it's important, and it was a goal on this album to do as many videos as possible. And there are a lot more to come, because songs seem to like not statistically on Spotify get as much attention if there's not a video for it. Like right now, we just released an EP on Friday. I can already see that Come Down, statistically, or not Come Down, Forevermore, because it has a video, is way higher than Death or Glory or Come Down. And I feel Come Down is one of the best songs we've ever written. But it's just, so that's just like statistically a fact. So we're like, we need to make videos or have content for as much stuff as possible. And so then we did Immortal, and that started out like, what if we were just zombies that just wanted to party? And then so we wrote all those little bits, and we're playing cornhole and, you know, fucking lighting bags of shit on fire. And that was just my joke, because anytime anyone would do someone wrong, I'd be like, yo, you okay? Like, you want me to go light a bag of shit on their doorstep on fire and run away? You can do that? I'll do that for you. And so then I did that as a zombie in a video, you know? And then the Forevermore video, which you saw, have you seen it yet?
Mm-hmm.
That we were filming a bunch of videos in a short time, and Brandon was like, what if we just film one like in the studio, and it's just kind of like us filming in a studio, and like it's just whatever. I'm like, that's not funny. He's like, yeah, we're running out of time though. Like, what other ideas can we have? Like, we're running out of time. I'm like, just give me a minute. So I meditate and I think, and skating video. Why don't we just do this? Like, why don't we just have like it's kind of like a turmoil thing between you and Dan, and then we just kind of wrote stuff on the day and just kept going. We rented that venue, and we just kind of came up with this weird fucking video, which turned out, like I posted on Instagram the other day, was my birthday. So I pre-played my own birthday party. It was fantastic. And I got to shoulder check the number 2 women's roller derby champions in the world, or team in the world. It was fantastic. The point is, my long-winded response is like, we wanted to show our side and wanted to show a little bit more of who we are outside of the music. And we're just like, we're very serious people, but we're also very fucking funny. And we don't take life too seriously unless it needs to be, you know? And so the next video that we've already filmed, that we just finalized, is fully Brandon's idea. I take no credit on this one. It is something that when he wrote the idea and he sent it to the group, I was like, you sure about that? Yeah. And everyone's like, no, this will be funny. And he's like, that'll be funny. I'm like, you know what? I trust you. Let's see what you got. And so this video is so fucking weird. It is so fucking weird. It's so weird. Anyways.
Weirdness. I mean, I don't know. I think that's where you end up growing, is when you kind of push yourself to be in uncomfortable territory.
We're definitely doing that in this video. Tell you what. It was very uncomfortable to be in this video.
Okay. more so than even having, like, I think that was the funnier thing to me for Drowning, was that like not say that you have any like body issues or anything like that, but I was like, wow, I can't believe Porter, I think this is the most skin I've seen of Porter's ever.
Oh, that was part of the hesitations and reservations I had for that video idea. I was like, man, I'm pale. I don't want to take my shirt off. I just don't do it. Like, I don't take my shirt off ever.
No.
So they were like, you look great. What are you talking about? So I only ate like fucking meat and cheese and vegetables for like a few weeks before that, and tried to work out a lot. It was terrible. I hate it. I don't like doing that. I mean, I like working out and eating well, but yeah. Oh man, I don't like taking my shirt off.
Would you, if you scored a goal?
I have, and no. Scored plenty of goals.
Huh, come on, that's the thing.
It is.
That's like
I would be the one that had like the shirt underneath that had like
that weird like sports bra thing.
Yeah. Well, like no, maybe. But
I've been watching Welcome to Wrexham, and all the guys have like a weird sports bra thing underneath, and I've been trying to figure out what the fuck it is, because I'm sure there's a.
If you look at the back, there's a tracker, and so it tracks their vitals. It tracks how far they run, where they run, and so the statistics that a team can have. I'm assuming in every sport, but in soccer, football specifically, like you can see so much about your team and be like, yo, against this team, you guys only ran 8 kilometers, and this one you ran 15. Like, what the fuck's wrong with you? What were you guys thinking? What's wrong with you? Like, where were you mentally? How can you fix this? What did you eat that day? And they can check like, oh, this player had a protein shake and ramen noodles before that game, and he was perfect. And that one, he had like a fucking burger and it was shit, or whatever. They don't eat burgers, most likely, hopefully. But so all that is just so they can see like where on the pitch they ran. Like they can see like, okay, look, you spent most of your time here and you need to press up more or whatever. So that's what all that's for.
Be interesting to see, because I know like it's funny from playing sports most of my life. It's like when I'm out and about, like especially like if I'm like needing to get somewhere and I'm in a crowd, it's like sort of like like playing football, especially like when you're playing like a running back or whatever. It's like the way you start seeing the separation, like where you're like, here's a gap and I gotta hit it now. But like then you're also still looking ahead at like what's happening in the shifting of movement and so forth. That it's like it's kind of hard to turn that off, even though I don't play football and haven't in a very long time. But it's weird like how instinctually like those skill sets that you learned from a sport, how you're able to kind of put it into your day-to-day life in weird ways. Kind of makes me wonder if during soccer, like there's something that, like, that you maybe when playing, like you tap into something else, maybe from a different part of your life or creative process that allows you to play soccer a different way than others.
I definitely do. I think something that I've always thrived at in sport and why I gravitated more towards soccer is the vision and to be able to see the field and to understand like a chess game where things are, where they should be, where they need to go. And growing up, I played goalkeeper, which is not the right position for me because I am short. I'm 5'9", and I'm not. But that's like most goalkeepers are 6 something. You know, they're huge. They're bigger people. But my I'm very good at geometry and space and angles and shape, and I'm aggressive as fuck when I play that sport. So it worked really well for me to play goalkeeper. Obviously, when I started playing music professionally, I could not play that position anymore because these things are, you know, you got to take care of them. So I started playing center midfield in the middle. That's in the position that's in the middle that kind of sees and dictates play. It helps defensively, but also makes sure the ball gets forward and distributes the ball really well. And so that's kind of like where I realized I probably should have just been playing my whole life. And it's way more fun for me. And that's like my favorite fucking role. But yes, I think me learning that about myself helped me in life, and the skills that I learned in playing in a team, because especially with that sport, like even fucking Messi coming to Miami, it didn't really do that much for them. Like he was fantastic. They won a lot of games. It was too late. He couldn't turn them around and make them win everything. He was injured for the cup final that they went to, so they didn't win. Like it's not an all-star sport. You have to have a team of players. And I would rather see a fucking team of people that aren't that great, but they play together well and have fire. You know what I mean? That's playing as a team is very important. And I think that definitely, I've never thought about it. I know that definitely helped me in the band and not to understand how to navigate being around and existing successfully for so long around 4 other human beings in that world. But yeah, fun fact, I played the other day here in Germany and did not know I was going to, did not have proper soccer shoes at all. I had Doc Martens and Crocs. That's the only 2 pairs of fucking shoes I had because everything else was in freight. And so my neighbor down the way, he's like a mid-50s, super nice guy. Doesn't speak a word of English. So imagine that part of this too. I learned that he liked football. I'm going to call it football because now we're in Germany.
Yep.
He was like, I was like, yeah, I've played my whole life. Like, that's so cool. And he's like, do you want to go kick next week? Tuesday, I don't know, 6:15. I'm like, sure. I'm like, that's oddly specific, but yeah, let's do it. Because it was like Wednesday, the week before. I'm like, yeah, okay, man. And so in my head, it's like him and me. So I like bring my ball and I'm in Doc Martens, and he's like, that's not going to work. I'm like, no, I've kicked in these before. It'll be fine. He had like dropped off shoes and stuff, but they were too big. He's like, let me find you some shoes. And so him and his wife went in their little closet thing and they found a pair of shoes, and they were like running shoes or jogging shoes. And I'm like, yeah, these fit. And so he's like, okay, cool. I'm going to drive you up to the field and you're going to train with the local team here. I'm like, professional team? He's like, yeah. I'm like, it's not just us kicking. He's like, no, you're going to train with the team. I know the coach. I'm like, right now? Like, are you fucking kidding? I haven't played in 5 years. Like, what? I don't speak German. Like, you're just gonna drop me off? I'm like, I speak a little bit, but not like it. Not well enough to understand a coach talking to people on a fucking pitch. So I go up. He introduces me to people. The trainer gets there. He says, "Hey, is it cool if he trains you?" He's like, "Yeah, of course." And then he leaves, and I'm just stuck with a bunch of mid-20s dudes that are soccer players, and they don't speak any English, and a fucking coach that doesn't speak any. I'm just there in like not good attire for this sport. I'm like, I had luckily just bought sweatpants the day before. All I had was fucking jeans, and I had like an Atreyu hoodie on. That's like all I had. And I get dumped into this, and I'm in my fucking women's jogging shoes, and it's just like the weirdest, like, what the fuck is happening situation.
So what music
one
video
guy
is
was
that
nice
for?
to me. Yeah, no, it should be then. I think Kit Capici did a video recently about soccer, and it was fucking awesome. But anyways, long story long, I did really fucking well, and it was actually 2 points in the training where the coach was like, "Why is Porter the best passer here? What the fuck is wrong with y'all? Like, he doesn't play this sport. He's not on our team, and why is he better than you? Shape the fuck up." And I was like, yeah. Everybody said I played really well, and they invited me back to train with them whenever I want, and which is awesome just for fitness. And then also there's 2 teams. Like, there's the first team and the second team. He was like, if you want to play on the second team, you can anytime.
So you're gonna be like Andy Williams and transition into a sport career later in your actual music career.
I think that time has passed. I think I'm a little bit too old for that. Wrestling, that's fucking fantastic what he's done, by the way.
I know, so great. He has an action figure now.
Yeah, it's so fucking cool. But I did well, and I'm still proud of myself. And like you said before, those skills were still there. Like, that's just, it's still in me. Even at 40.
Yeah, it's like last night with this lime. At one point, I was just like, because everyone was also
I
surprised.
was wondering if you're going to bring the line back up.
It's funny that everyone was like, it's still firm, and I'm like, what do you think? I'm just some monster just squishing the shit out of this thing, and I would just still hold it? Like, that's weird. And I was like, I mean, not that just holding on to a lime in general is not weird for over the course of 10 hours, 11 hours, but be that as it may. But it was funny. I was like, because everyone's like, well, what's the end goal with it? And I was like, I don't know. I was like, right now and then like, it was funny because like I would explain to people like why I enjoy, because I'm also a very like tactile person with like touch. So like I often joke with other podcasters. I'm like, what are your like trinkets that you like to play with that don't make noise? Like during your podcast. So like one for me is like the dongle for old headphones.
Okay. Yeah.
Because like I can twist it. It has different ends and stuff. And someone had given me a bracelet when I worked door at the bar. Gave bracelets to everyone that worked at the bar, and the person would always be like, "You never wear yours," and I was like, "I don't wear jewelry. Like, be thankful I even wear my wedding ring. Like, it's the only thing I wear." And I was like telling them because they were kind of upset about it, and I go, "No, I don't wear it, but it is something I play with every single time I do a podcast. Like, you gave me 2 different ones. One is like red with like more like dice type shape, more cubed. So I like playing with the corners of them." And like the words and stuff inside of it, like it's fun. You can stretch it and all that kind of stuff. And I was telling her, I tend to find that I like that one versus the more like globy type beads that she used, because like those don't have as many like different touches to it. And so like with the lime, the thing that's been fun is like it's got a nice weight to it. It has 2 points on it, so it's fun to just kind of move. And then as I did it over and over and over for, like I said, 10, 11 hours, it started to feel, and I don't know what, like I said this to my friend last night. I was like, the weird thing is, because someone goes, it's very warm. And I go, well, I've been holding it for like hours. And then I was like, to me, the weird thing is it feels almost like reptilian, like skin, like a lizard skin. And I go, also, it feels very worn in, which you would never come to that conclusion with a piece of fruit, because fruit will never last as long as it's been in my hand. And then so when I put it in someone else's hand, I was like, see, like, and kind of like be like, here, see. And then everyone that I would hand it to you'd see them just doing this until I was like, can I have it back? Like, but like someone was like, for like 45 minutes to an hour, they were doing it. I was like, it's oddly satisfying, isn't it? And they're like, yeah, it is. I'm like,
you need to make a Taco Tuesday with that. You need to like do half of it for tacos and then half of it for like a margarita or something.
I had thought about how funny would it be if,
You need because it will die, it will rot. There's like
yeah, yeah,
there's like a story, there's like a longer arcing metaphor to this
yeah.
to this
Well, I had said,
your situation with this lime, but you need to
I
treat it well.
said,
In the end.
wouldn't it be funny if in all of the time of this giving me like tranquility and, you know, taking the conflict lime away from the young couple so that they could enjoy the rest of their day, if at the end of everything I chose violence with it and just hucked it at someone to end my night, like, I'm done with this. Like, just what a
I
full
don't
circle
advise that
moment
path.
where
I don't
do,
advise that
obviously,
path,
clearly.
but I like it.
Yeah. It was a very intriguing night, and I still find that I get oddly fixated on time when I am on psychedelics. Like, that's why I had that mini kit.
I
Like,
can't
freaking out.
fathom. This is what I was thinking earlier, but it took me 2 hours to get a chance to say or think about. I can't fathom that you did that in a public space. I've never done acid LSD. I've done research on it, which means fuck all unless you've done it. Uh, I've done mushrooms, and I've done them one time where I was around other humans I didn't know, and it was a nightmare. I feel like for me personally, it takes me to a place that I need to be around safe people or like nature or like that sort of stuff. So to be on acid and like that busy of a night is just seems just different strokes for different folks.
But I mean, like, to me, like, I worked at that bar, so I know it. I know it very well. I've been going there for shit, probably like 15 years or so at this point. Like, I've been a regular for a very long time. The people that are there that are regulars, I've known for a very long time. The bartenders are like some of my best friends. And so, like, I felt safe. Like, I knew, like, and I even told everyone, like, I'm on an acid trip right now. So, like, you know, I'm not fucked up. Like, I'm still very cognizant of everything. But, you know, if I'm seem like a little like not talkative or whatever, like, just, you know, like at one point, here's like literally a text I sent Bridget last night because I thought it was funny. I had a realization. There is another regular that frequents that bar, and they will take like an hour. They'll be there for like hours, like 7-8 hours, and basically be nursing a drink because they're on something. And so I had the realization because I was like, oh shit, because I was thinking internally, I was like, okay, like, my friend, it was my spot to pick up the tab at. And so I was like, okay, my friend's probably had like, and I'm counting the cups because he's keeping the cups. And I'm like, okay, that I should send you the photo. Because I'm looking at the photo right now that I sent Bridget. Let me see, hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 cups. And so I was looking at those and I'm like, okay, I know those are Miller Highlights. I know that they're like on draft and they're cheaper. And then I was like thinking about how I was drinking long drink because those are my social drinks. Because they're sweet. They, you know, you just drink them casually. And then I was like, what cost? I should switch to whiskey because it'll be like $2, $2.50. So, and I was like, look, starting to do the mental math, and I'm like, shit, I think I got about $100 tab right now. So I need to like kind of slow down. But I had come to the realization that like I wasn't drinking quickly or very much. And so I was like, shit, I don't want to be like that person that's just sitting here essentially freeloading, taking up space and not making money for my friends. And so, and this person has kind of a raspy voice. So I was like, I joked with the person, I still was sipping on my first drink. Don't let me be like so-and-so sipping on one drink for 18 hours, like with the rasp of a Black and Mild. But Bridget was just like, I can't believe like you just were out that whole time. But to me, like, it felt safe. Secondly, to me, it's like, I don't know, like, I wish I was this adventurous with my food, but like, there's weird food insecurities that I have from past ways of growing up. We talked about it when we were at Founders, and when I gave you my sandwich,
I ate the shit out of that. It was everyone was
jealous, including me. But it was a thing where when we were talking about all those things, I feel like I just would rather be kind of in the deep end and figure it out and like be immersed in it, because I feel like that's, I don't know, it's just, why not? Like, why pussyfoot it? Like, why not just get into it and see like what it's gonna do? And I think the thing for me is like when we came home, like last night I watched it. I thought it was a new movie with Ryan Reynolds and Jason Bateman. Apparently it wasn't until the very end where I was like, oh, this movie came out in like 2011. This is old as shit. But that was like when I was on my come down before trying to sleep. That I watched this movie. It was basically like Trading Places, but with Ryan Reynolds and Jason Bateman like switching each other's like bodies, like that whole thing. And when it was done, and like the guy like realizes that he loves his wife and all these things, and that his life isn't as bad, he doesn't wish that he was somebody else. Like I just sat there and I was like, I miss my wife. I'm glad that she'll be home on Monday.
Well,
And I'm glad that she's having fun with her friends. I'm glad I got to do this. Like this wouldn't have been her thing at all. But I had a really solid weekend with like my guys, and that's why I always do like a guys' weekend when she leaves. And I just felt a sense of like I laughed so hard all day yesterday. Like, and I know this is like such a high thing, but it was like the bit, like kind of speaking to how like you guys come up with your music videos. Like at one point, someone was changing the channel from the college football. Someone wanted to watch horse racing, and then somehow it went to NASCAR. And I was like, we went from horses to horsepower. What the fuck? And then
it's good.
When we were looking at the title on the TV, because like when they show you like the what's coming on next, like at the very end of the screen, since they can't give you the full name, it just gives you an abbreviated thing. So it was just, I looked up and just saw Dale Jr. Download. And I looked at my buddy and I was like, Dale Jr. Download sounds like some kind of shitty show where like you're in like, sorry, this is the only thing I can think of, where you're in like some foreign country that's like 20, 30 years behind. So they're like, today we're going to try to download this image of Dale Jr. on a Hewlett Packard rented from this place on dial-up. Let's see who can download the best photo in the fastest time. And that was what I thought Dale Jr. Download would be in my head at that point. And I thought it was very funny. And then I kept looking at the show when it was on, and I just looked at my buddy and I go, if Welp had a face, it's all these fucking long-faced motherfuckers with shitty haircuts, these NASCAR drivers. Well, and I go, like every time you would look at it, it looks just like they'd be like, well, and then that just broke him. Like he just was dying laughing. And then on the way home, like a friend of mine was very gracious. My bartender from last night actually came out. I was waiting for an Uber that took forever. And then he showed up and I was like, hey, I don't want to be an inconvenience. Could you possibly give us a ride home? I'll buy you a drink. He's like, yeah, absolutely. But then on the way home, because he had already worked his bar shift and now it's like 2:00 in the morning. And so he's like just kind of like sleep deprived. And we're on the way home and we just the whole trip home in his like truck, like where we're in the cabin and there's three of us and I have to sit like this in the middle because he's the center console thing and my buddy is bigger and he's driving. And the whole trip home, we were all using Macho Man voices, just talking about weird shit, just cracking each other up. And I was like, it's so stupid. It's the most dumb thing ever. But in that moment of like kind of that like come down to the body high and all that, I was just like, I fucking love this. I'm with my like best people. Nothing was planned. We just did. We just went and did.
Yeah.
And I couldn't have asked for a more better experience. And at the end of it, that was what I always talk about, and I try to talk responsibly about doing, these things because and some real talk, when I couldn't sleep, I was like, fuck, like, what if I fuck myself up? And like, now I'm like stuck in this thing and I won't be able to sleep for a while or whatever. And I started having.
It's funny that acid has that a little bit too, because I've had that with shrooms where you have like 5 hours of awesomeness and then you have that like 30 minutes to an hour of like, I don't want to jump off a bridge, right?
Yeah.
Not really.
I was there, man. And so it became this thing where the whole time I just thought about how I love my friends. I had great conversations with two of my like best friends that I've known for 2 decades. I was surrounded by awesome people all day. I felt good. I realized that I love my wife and I'm glad that we both get to support each other in going to do separate things. Like, I don't hold resentment that she's out in Vegas having a fun time. I chose to do something that was fun for me. And I think like when we get back together on Monday, it'll be great. And then the next trip we have coming up to go to Buffalo in a couple of weeks, like that'll be our trip. And it's just a thing. And then even knowing that you and I were talking today and been putting it off and, was looking forward to catching up. And I had no idea where this conversation was going to go, but I just, even when thinking about it last night, I just kind of was like excited to do it. And I just, that's been my whole vibe all week, is just happiness in my life and being content with where I am. And
I think that, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that psychedelics, from my limited experience in mushrooms and even weed for an extent, like I think that these things are teachers, and I think that there are lessons that can be learned from them. I used to smoke a lot of weed and I learned a lot of lessons, for good and for bad, and I grew a lot from it. And anytime I've taken mushrooms, like there's you're being taught something, and I know it's like they can be like,
actually, hold on.
It gets you to a place.
I was going to say, to me, I just stumbled across this thinking about it. It is the tower card to me.
Yeah.
When you do is you're shaking up everything, and either you're going to hopefully have the tools to learn whatever it is, because you're shedding almost your ego or whatever your walls you're bound.
Yeah.
You're just dealing with things kind of raw and in the moment.
Yeah. It's exactly that. It's getting you past all the bullshit, getting you to a place where you can connect to things more and to yourself more and to understand what really matters more. What are you doing?
My bartender that was like, please tell me you have the lime still. And I was like, yes.
I had a funny face in that moment too. But it allows you to get to that. And like you just said, you came out of that experience, like, you had a fantastic time. You had all these cool things happen, but you were like, my life's fucking awesome. I love my wife. I'm stoked for this. Like, and it helps you get a better perspective on existence. And I think it's important to remember, when you utilize psychedelics, to learn from it and grow from it and appreciate those things and connect with those scenarios, and also to not fully just use them to get to those places and not become like, I have to have mushrooms to be this, or I have to smoke weed all the time to be this. And I think that's where the issue comes. And I think that's one of the cool part about these drugs is that drugs is the wrong word, psychedelics, is that it helps you skip a lot of work in spirituality, and it lets you realize, like, oh fuck. And then you bring that back to your everyday and be like, oh, I need to find ways to connect to that, because that's possible. I felt it.
Yeah. Well, I think that was the thing, is between psychedelics and therapy really kind of made things connect, like you said, a lot faster. Like, where you're just like, oh, this is a thing. Okay. All right. Noted. I was asked a question yesterday, and we'll wrap on this before I have you plug whatever you would like online. So I was asked if I like reading and what kind of books I like reading, or is there a book that I felt summarized who I am? Now, again,
wow,
in the middle of an acid trip. In the middle of an acid
on
trip.
an acid trip.
So here was mine, because a lot of what I read is biographies, because I just find like actual experiences interesting. That said, I said Slaughterhouse-Five, I think, is a good representation of me, because it's deep, it's based in a lot of factual things, like, but there's a weird underlying humor to it, sometimes intentional, sometimes it's kind of out of nowhere, and you're like, is that okay? I don't know. But there's also a little bit.
I need to reread that book. This is not the first time this has been brought up in the past few months. I need to reread it.
The book itself?
Yeah, okay. I haven't read it in like 15, 20 years.
Yeah, that's also another thing that, like, I have a problem with, is reading, because I have a good retention for things. So a lot of times I'm like, what's the point of reread? Like, and that was something we were talking about too.
I'm the opposite.
You should reread a book, because it might show reveal something to you differently now versus when you first read it. And I was like, I understand that. However, I feel like it'd be like a movie where I'm watching it, reading it, and then I would go, oh yeah, this is about to happen. And so I'm kind of ruining the story. Like, I already know where it's going. I don't need.
Totally depends on the book, in my opinion. I am the opposite of that, where I have the fucking brain of a housefly that I just do not remember books. Like, I don't remember specifics. Like if I try to reread the book, I'll start to remember things. But like earlier, I don't remember what it was. You were talking about conversations or things that you thought about, and you bringing out quotes. Like, I don't have that ability. I don't. And I realized that recently when I was talking to Julia about stuff, because I'll just not give her details. I remember the physical action of things. I remember the moments. I remember the feelings. I remember what we got up to. But I cannot tell you most things I said. Like, or what other people said too. I just do not retain that information for whatever reason. Like, I cannot pull back quotes like that. Like, people tell me things that I said to them all the time. I'm like,
Sure.
okay. Like, I do not remember. Situations have happened that I just don't remember as well. It's just strange. It's sort of strange. So I can reread books is my point.
I think that I mean, I can rewatch movies. I love that. But I think the thing that gets interesting about that, like having that knowledge of recollection of like something though, I think for me is also at times not detrimental. I feel like it just gets sort of annoying because like when you're trying to have conversations with people and you're like, oh, this thing, and people are like actually what really bothers me, and I realized this last night too, is someone was trying to recount a story, an event that we both were a part of, and they're like, yeah, well then you did this. I was like, no, I didn't. And they're like, no, you did this. I was like, I 100% did not. And I was like, you're remembering that wrong. This is what was going on. I was sitting over here with so-and-so and so-and-so. This person was over here. You were here. Da-da-da-da. And then someone's like, no.
That I would remember.
I go, no, 100%. I go, because then this happened. This was going on. Like, because I'll also oddly, again, because I just take in weird details to shit when I'm around. Like, I don't know if it's like a weird survival thing where it's like, okay, like if I ever have to get interrogated by a police on something that happened, I got to remember like weird shit. Like, oh, I remember this person because they had old looking feelers on. And I realized at the time I haven't seen feelers in probably 20 years.
Yeah.
That's weird. And they look old. So like they're not new. So are these some shoes that this person had for 20 something years and they only look like they're 22? How long have these shoes been around? Were they their parents? Like, again, last night, like I noticed a bunch of people wearing New Balances, and I was like, there is an ungodly amount of New Balances in this proximity to us that I've never seen before. Very weird thing that I remember, but one pair were stylish, and I go, that might be the only pair of New Balances I'd ever buy, but I don't think I could ever pull off a pair of New Balances. But again, weird shit like that I notice, and so when people try to recollect something and I'm like, that's wrong, and I can tell you it's wrong because of this thing, and a lot of times it's also a joke I try to make that did not land, that I always remember. I go, because remember, I made this joke. Remember Dale Jr. download when I said it was about da-da-da? Then this happened right after that. And then people are like, oh yeah, I do remember the Dale Jr. download. Yeah, you're right.
Funny.
Yes. So I guess do you have a book in mind that you think would...
No, I don't know.
No?
The only thing, man... The thing that popped into my brain, but like I said, I haven't read it in so long that I don't remember it all. There was a book called Hatchet when I was a kid that I read. There were two books I read at the same time. One called My Side of the Mountain and one called Hatchet.
Oh, great book.
And they were both like young survival books. And I think that would be it. Because I just oftentimes will just get thrown into scenarios where like I just have to figure it out and survive. And I do. I don't know.
Just remember
that's the only thing I can think of.
The Peregrine Falcon.
Yes, that too. Fuck, that was great. But I don't. That's a fantastic question, and I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Well, if I remember this part of the conversation next time you come on, or next time I see you, whichever happens first, I'm going to ask that question, and then I will present to you this line.
Please don't.
And a photo.
You got to use that before it rots. You got to use that before it rots. You can't let that thing shrivel up. You got to use it. You got. I
might return it back to its original place so it can be used in drinks.
No, that's gross. You've put too much into that. You got to do it for you.
You know what? Maybe I'll put it in the ground because it's got me. I'm returning something back to the ground, to the earth.
I think you should use those juices. Oh, that's so weird to say.
So it went from a conflict lime to now a creative juice is what we're determining.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I said, make some fucking tacos, squirt it on it, and then have a fucking, I don't know. You said you like long drinks, vodka soda, margarita. Yeah. I don't know. Treat yourself.
Treat yourself. Oh, I treated myself last night. I'm shocked that I'm still on the other side of it. That's always the positive, though. Even however bad it is,
Yep.
whatever it was, still here on the other side. Still doing good.
Hmm.
It's crazy how you get like the
All right.
best sleep. It's crazy. When do you finally get to?
Yeah, when you finally get there.
Yeah.
Nice.
What would you like to plug online or anything that you got coming up that you want to talk about at the end here?
I mean, we had a Atreyu official is everything. We are most active, I would say, on Instagram. Um, so you can go there. AtreyuOfficial.com as well has all our dates, all of our information, videos and stuff, merch, all that sort of stuff. We got some cool stuff there, and cool stuff that we have coming on the way. I'm just Porter McKnight on. I usually really only go on Instagram, and even then I don't post that much. I have
You lurk.
anxieties from and weird stuff from social media, and I don't even go on it that much. So I'll check like the immediate stories it shows me, or like a couple things, and that's it. Then my wife sends me a lot of reels that I laugh at before going to bed.
Very much the same.
Yeah, I just don't. I don't really do the social media. But if you want to get in contact, it's Porter McKnight on Instagram. That's the best route, and I will respond eventually.
So I'm going to leave you with this and make it awkward. Something I'm trying to be more mindful of moving forward is speaking appreciations and so forth into existence, letting people know, oh, we're putting the hoodie up, we're getting defensive, we're reflecting.
No, I'm just
No, just kidding. Body language. But it's a thing where, again, last night after I thought we'd never set an actual time, and I started freaking out because I'm like, oh shit, I need to send an alarm. I need to be responsible.
You texted me. I'm like, aren't you on an acid trip? Like, what do you?
Yeah, but I get weirdly fascinated with time, and I was like looking back through. I was like, I think it's 10. I was like, and then all I saw was 9 to 10, and I didn't see the other part. And I was like, fuck. We never set an actual time. I need to get that figured out before this maybe gets off the rails. But as a whole, I was thinking about you coming on all those years ago and just like the journey of friendship from running into you at the mall. I know I've talked about that ad nauseum, but it's just thinking about the spark of the friendship of meeting each other and how far like it has come, you helping me rebrand the show visually, and just kind of always being someone that I can have these kind of conversations with, whether it's on record or not. That I very much appreciate you, your time, your
Thanks.
friendship, your knowledge, and your advice on things. And like I said earlier, you saying the comment like, don't be afraid of something. It's just knowledge. What you choose to do with it from there is what you do with it from there. I try to use that in so many other situations in my life.
That's awesome.
And so just, again, want to thank you for everything. Since we,
well, I don't remember saying that.
Don't always do that.
It helps.
I know.
No,
it's one of those things.
I think that I appreciate that. I appreciate that, and the same, man. It's been a fun journey, and it's I don't have a lot of people in my life that I keep in, but the good people I try to, and you've been a good human since I met you. And I think it's cool that you're saying that, because people only tend to compliment people when they're either sick or dead. So it's nice to be able to say that how you feel when you're alive. I think that's a very important thing that I strive to do, and my wife is definitely, I point to her like she's above and she's painting, because she's always encouraged that too, and she always will like compliment everyone all the time and tell them how that she feels and make sure that they know, because it's really important. So thank you for sharing that. Same.
Yeah. Well, enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy painting. Enjoy playing with June.
I shall.
And Shadow, how's that going?
Shadow and Ozzy are at each other's throats all the time. More because of Ozzy's a little dickhead, but he got his balls, wouldn't say chopped off, because they just kind of like slice and like squeeze out whatever's in there when they're young. So weird to say that, that I know that. And so hopefully he's calming down. He's a little psychopath. My wife found this kitten, very, very like tiny little handful kitten, by our pond in Alabama right after the lawn was mowed, like the big tractor had mowed things. And he should have been dead, but we kept him, and he's a fucking psychopath. but he's fantastic. He was actually laid down and meditated with me, and that's the first time he's ever done anything like that. He first stepped on my face and tried to bite me, but then he after that sat next to me. So they're doing well. Everybody, like, now that we are out of just the bottom zone of this house, it's going to be a lot better. They have a lot more space to run and roam, and yeah, it's fantastic. It's a fucking zoo, though.
Well, until the next time, my friend, we'll talk then.
All the best to you, and all the best to everyone.
So that was my conversation with Porter. I want to thank him again for taking the time on a Sunday morning to listen to me talk about my acid trip from the day before, and to just kind of be there to bounce ideas off of, and to have a real conversation about where each other are at in our lives and things we're thinking of and all of those kind of things. I mean, indirectly with some of the what I'll say actual friends that I have on this show, you get a small glimpse essentially of what our conversations look like. And that's kind of why I love having these conversations and kind of sharing it with people. Because the other thing too, and something that I always praise Porter for, is always kind of being the person that I feel like I can throw an idea out there to. I can talk about whatever about, and I'm not going to be judged as like, that's a stupid fucking thing to say, or that's weird, or whatever. That it's usually dealt with. Like he'll take it in and just kind of either, if it's something he's into or is interested in, you'll kind of delve down that path and kind of explore things together. If it's something that he has more knowledge on, then it turns into something where he kind of offers advice. And it's a thing where I really hope people have that person in their life. I think it's very important and beneficial. And the other thing that I've always said I love about Porter is, he is someone that always includes everybody in whatever he's doing. When my wife and I and him, actually, let me re-say that the correct way. When he, my wife, and I all went out for lunch before their show the last time they were here in town, he, made sure to include her in the conversation, asked different questions to her. And, sometimes I'm not saying that like people don't do that, but I think he makes sure to go out of his way to do such. And he always does that. He does that whenever I hang out with like him at any point. He always wants to make other people feel included, to make them feel good. And it's such an admirable quality in him. And it's why I've grown to really appreciate our friendship. Like I said, I think everyone needs that person who pushes you, who challenges you, and who also motivates you and boosts you up. Why don't you want someone like that in your life? And it's one of those things where, kind of speaking more to Atreyu, I mean, you can just kind of feel it. You can see it. When you see these guys play, since Alex has been out of the band, you can see a different band. They're more fun. There's smiles across everyone's faces, and it just translates. It's a different vibe of a show. If you didn't see the band before and you haven't seen them now, like, it's just kind of hard to say, but having gotten to spend a lot of time with the guys over the last handful of years, the band is great, and the new songs are fun and fresh and interesting. And I think one of my favorite things that Bridget always says is like, I know the whole set, and I don't really actively listen to Atreyu on my own. I don't go out of my way to listen to it, but like, I know the songs and I have a fun time, and everyone in the band is so nice, and it's one of those things that I love that. I love that even someone who's not necessarily quote unquote the biggest fan can notice that, and it's really great. So I want to thank Porter for always taking the time. I want to thank Julia for allowing me to have Porter for as long as I did. I know you guys are in the midst of renovating your house and all that kind of stuff. And hopefully, maybe in the next year or so, my wife and I will get off our ass and actually start trying to make international plans to go somewhere and travel instead of just traveling here in the States, and go see some new culture and some new places. And Porter always makes, Germany and areas over there sound and look so great with it, not only talking about it, but his photography is something that's been really great. So, yeah, just a great person, and I love talking to him, and I haven't talked to him in a hot minute, so maybe I need to reach out now that he's off tour and just check in, see how he's doing. Maybe I'll do that when I'm done with this. If you would like to keep up with Atreyu, you can find them simple enough at AtreyuOfficial.com. That is your landing page for everything Atreyu. If you would like me to spell it out for you, though, you can go on Facebook at Atreyu, Instagram and Twitter at AtreyuOfficial. If you'd like to keep up with Porter, you can find him on Instagram and Twitter at Porter McKnight. Forewarning, though, he doesn't really use Twitter. X, whatever the fuck you want to call it. It's always going to be Twitter. I'm never not calling it Twitter. Even when you put in twitter.com, it still takes you to X, and it still is called Twitter. So fuck that. Just keep calling it Twitter. If you'd like to keep up with me, you can do such over at... hold on. I would be remiss. There's portermcknight.com as well. That basically has a bunch of Porter's photography and things that you can buy for sale that he has done. Some prints and so forth. I have a few here in the house. Does phenomenal stuff. Highly recommend going there. Also, as of, I think, a couple of days ago, Porter now has a Cameo, so you can find him on cameo.com/PorterMcKnight. If you'd like him to wish you a happy birthday, anniversaries, anything, you can have the legendary bearded man himself with a soft voice wish you whatever you would like him to do. So go do that. Support my friend in the various endeavors he has. For the podcast, if you'd like to keep up with us, simple enough, BrewSpeakPod on all your major social media platforms. You can email me at brewtallyspeaking@gmail.com and keep the conversation going. That's been happening a lot lately, like I said in the intro, and it's been kind of surreal getting used to that, but it is something I am getting used to, and I'm really appreciative of anyone who is taking the time to listen to it. So much appreciated. And to start wrapping up this thing more with some more gratitude, I want to thank Rockabilia for their continued support of the podcast, sponsoring us for over a year now, over 2 years, I think, at this point. Head on over to rockabilia.com, use our code BREWtally at checkout, and pick up some awesome merch. The collabs they're doing with all the bands is phenomenal. The Halloween stuff was really fucking fun. My Atreyu Halloween hoodie that I got from them was super awesome. I love it. Very excited to see what they do for Valentine's Day and a bunch of the other things. Frankie and the guys and gals over there are always trying to do really awesome collaborations with bands and unique, fun items for the fans. So go support them for supporting us, and Starving Artist Brewery for always making delicious beer. And I really need to go up there and try to get some beer before it gets like super snowy and it's a little bit harder to get up there, but I need to do that. So check them out. If you're in the Michigan area, go there. Go pick up some beer. It's a nice little hidden secret because it's not widely distributed. So it's one of those things where if you don't know about them, it's kind of one of our best kept secret breweries here in town, here in the state, I should say, not here in Grand Rapids yet. And for the Brewtally Speaking podcast, I am John. I will talk to you all next week, the day before the new year, where I have Alex from Dead Icarus, formerly of Atreyu. That was a fun chat, a lot of interesting conversation in there. And very much looking forward to getting that to you and ending the year on a strong notes. Have a happy Christmas, happy holidays, whatever you celebrate, whatever you are doing over this holiday season. Enjoy it. And I'll talk to you all next time.